Run away.
Weird.
Yeah, he was so scared. He was so scared the entire,
he
the entire
called
time
it a war.
I know.
He called it a war.
Super, super scary. And again, if it is a war, that is a really weird filter on it. That is a really weird filter because if he defines it as a war, that changes things like, I don't know, sending the military into Mexico, which would be an invasion, a legit invasion of another sovereign nation. That's an issue.
I don't think he said he was going to send the military into Mexico.
No, but that was something that Ron DeSantis had talked about. Vivek Ramaswamy talked about it. We've had numerous Republicans talk about even launching missiles. Trump explored the idea of launching missiles at the cartels because he said, of course, they couldn't tell it was us because nobody else on the planet has satellite technology to track where a missile comes from. It's only America. Only America has that. And if we sent a missile into Mexico, nobody'd tell. Nobody at all. Not the Chinese, not the Russians. Nobody. It'd be our little secret. I don't know. Yesterday on both sides, the stupidity hurt my head.
I got it. And God. Joe Biden going off to the wildfires too. You Neanderthals.
Yeah.
We're going to play that clip here in just a second.
That was an interesting one, too. Oh, boy.
It was everything wrong with America and our leadership, all targeted right in one location yesterday.
Yes, it was.
That was amazing. We've got Kristi Burton Brown in the 7 o'clock hour joining us. She's got a new article out on the top 5 goofiest bills being introduced down there.
Now, I got to ask you, before we start, do you have that, or do you need to print that for you? This is just a functional thing of the show.
I got it, brother.
Oh, you do? Good. Okay, good. That's actually what's doing on the phone right now. I'm like, I forgot to print that. So, okay, good.
We got...
Less. Okay, big sigh, much better. Okay, good.
We've got that. And then in the 9 o'clock hour, we're going to be joined by Brian McGuire. Brian is the former chief of staff to Mitch McConnell.
That's going to be interesting.
A little inside information about Mitch McConnell.
And I'd be curious, again, just him being the, former chief of staff, what it takes to be in that role and who he sees as a possible successor. I'm not looking for him to know anybody, but based on the skill set that he's seen behind the scenes,
who's next?
Who's he interacted with that says, oh, this person has what it takes? I'm real curious about that because I'm not certain that I would know at all. Any way, shape, or form.
And then I'm going to ask the listeners this question. Are you shocked by the CU study that came out just the other day? 2020 police pullback led to more crime. And did we need a study to tell us that? This is from the Denver Gazette. Police pullback in response to law enforcement changes in Colorado's metro areas led to more instances of violence and property crime, according to the University of Colorado Boulder study. We'll get to all that and more. Let's go to Blake Olson with the news. Good morning, Blake.
Morning.
Good morning, TGIF, guys. 35 and mostly cloudy in Denver, expecting highs in the low 60s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, Colorado marking an education milestone to fully fund schools for the first time since 2009. Governor Polis says the move will provide teachers with the resources they need.
A sustainable way for the state to continue this commitment for years to come.
Oh, I love sustainable. Teachers and students join lawmakers at the Capitol Thursday to celebrate the proposal with a Taylor Swift-themed rally. Exciting. Police have arrested 45-year-old Asa Peck in connection with the murder of 49-year-old Chantel Wilkes of Loveland. She was found dead in a river near Barnes Park in August of 2022. The man who was experimenting with fireworks and explosives Thursday and died in the explosion at the dog park in Aurora was a 42-year-old man from Strasburg. Aurora police working with the ATF. Police have arrested a man who was on the run for 9 days after he escaped a patrol car in Highlands Ranch. Alexander Reihart slipped out of the vehicle while in handcuffs, initially wanted on outstanding warrants. Former President Trump and President Biden both at the southern border on Thursday. One sounded like a leader and the other did not. You choose.
I call him Crooked Joe because he's crooked. He's a terrible president, the worst president our country's ever had, and probably the most incompetent president we've ever had. But it's allowing thousands and thousands of people to come in from China, Iran, Yemen, the Congo, Syria.
I just want the American people to know what we're trying to get done. How many more of these big things are we talking about?
The non-intrusive inspection technology under the legislation.
There is no way he makes it. No way. A temporary ceasefire in the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza unlikely to happen by Monday. President Biden said he thought it would happen a few days ago while eating ice cream. The FBI arrested a Wheat Ridge man for alleged involvement in the January 6th riot. Matthew Melson charged with felony civil disorder and assaulting and resisting officers, according to the FBI. Developers looking into plans to improve Pena Boulevard. Roughly 130,000 vehicles travel the road every day to and from DIA. If you have any ideas, you can give them to the experts at flydenver.com. A temporary ceasefire in the war between Israel and Hamas will be talked about today between President Biden and officials there, and also President Biden trying to encourage President Trump to work with him on the border. We'll talk about that. The news brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills. Locally owned and operated since 1954. Online at lairfireplacepatio.com. 30 in Louisville, 31 in Castle Rock, and 35 in Denver. The Nuggets over the Heat, 103-97. The Avs shut out the Blackhawks 5-0. Jeff and Bill on their way, just getting started. They continue on this Friday morning. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
Rumble at the border. Joe Biden and Donald Trump both down there yesterday. We've got all the audio clips, and we're going to lay them out for you so you can tell us who has the best response and whether or not you believe these. Let's start with Joe Biden. But before he gets into, this was one of the best ones. Before he gets into the border, he has to deal, first of all, with this wildfire. Here's Joe Biden on the wildfires.
I've been a helicopter in the west and the southwest and northwest, flown over more land burned to the ground, all the vegetation gone, than this entire state of Maryland in square footage. The idea there's no such thing as climate change, I love that, man. I love some of my Neanderthal friends who still think there's no climate change. Well, my administration is going to keep building on the progress we've made fighting climate crisis, and we're going to help folks rebuild themselves in the wake of these disasters. And we rebuild to the standards that are the up-to-date standards.
So you Neanderthals out there, if you don't believe that the reason you have these giant wildfires is because of climate change, we did a documentary on this for the Western Conservative Summit where we looked at all the wildfires, particularly in the West, because if you really do care about climate change, changing over to an EV versus the amount of CO2 these wildfires put in is just astronomical. There's a study a few years ago that the one big wildfire in California was equivalent to millions of cars driving 24/7, 365 days. And the conservative argument, particularly on these wildfires, is rooted in poor federal land management, where you have basically turned these forests into museums that we're not allowed to touch. And as a result, you have deadfall after deadfall after deadfall, as opposed to treating them like a garden and cleaning them up and, restoring them and preparing them so you don't end up with all of this tinder that just sits there and burns.
Yeah, but that would cost money. And the one thing, to be fair, the GOP doesn't want to do is spend more money on government programs, because there have to be a government program. And so if there was a government program that was said, hey, this is going to happen. The other part, though, on this, and we've discussed climate change. Again, I will not entertain the idea that climate change doesn't exist. We have knowledge. We have real world knowledge. You don't have to listen to scientists. You can see it. We can discuss the impact that man has on it. But the idea it's not changing, that ship has sailed. And again, I go back to Tornado Alley. We had Tornado Alley. We don't have Tornado Alley. We had tornado season. We don't have tornado season. That is climate change. That is the core of what it means. And you've got it real world. So it exists. The other thing is wildfire season is changing. And that's climate change as well. We've got wildfires in, let me check. February and March. It never happened before. We didn't do that. So regardless of the mitigation as far as the forest, the idea of when moisture is dropping in our seasons is also impactful. So is it the 100% cause? No. But even if we were not taking care of our forests, if our weather and climate were still the same as it was 40 years ago, we would have enough moisture that you wouldn't have fires in February and March. That's a difference.
Help me understand, if this is such a big issue from the left, why they continue to fly around the world in their jets.
Oh, yeah. Again, they are not as serious about it as they lead you to believe. Not in any way, shape, or form. Yeah.
I appreciate you acknowledging
Absolutely.
that.
Not in the
because
least.
it always struck me as the pastor that's like, premarital sex is really bad.
Really is.
And breaking up, infidelity is really bad, but I have a harem.
Yes, exactly. And that's exactly what it is. The idea that anybody, again, personally, anybody that is arguing, John Kerry's a great example, arguing against climate change, etc., and flies on a private plane, I don't really respect you at that point, simply because if you were really worried, it's not that hard to fly commercial.
Yeah.
It is more convenient for you, and if you were trying to do the little things, there was a thing that I heard, and this is going to surprise people. Coming home from one of the bar trivia things, I happened across NPR. Terry Gross does some interesting interviews, so on Fresh Air. So there are times I always check in there when I'm driving home to see what the interview is. And had a climate activist on. The woman was so serious about this, she went to Antarctica. And she spent months and months in Antarctica. And one of the things she talked about is how she was, she and her partner, they were really concerned about bringing a child into this horrible world that's just burning and it's about to die. And we're so concerned. And she went to Antarctica. And during the interview, she said, I was surprised that seeing and knowing what I know about the world and the climate, I still wanted to have the baby. I still wanted to have, there were all of these consumer motivations. And it was interesting. She actually was very open, and Terry was able to push into the cracks and found the cracks inside of her climate change dogma and got her to a position of saying, yeah, maybe the stuff, maybe the little tiny things. And she literally got the woman to admit, okay, the tiny stuff that I'm doing at home, the making sure that I'm getting all my recyclables into this, that in the grand scheme of things really doesn't matter. I'm like, my God, what? I thought I was going to drive off the road at that point. I'm like, did she just do what I thought she did? And I think too many people don't, they view it as, and I like your analogy of religion. It becomes a religion.
Yes.
And it can't
That's very
be.
true, Bill.
Yeah, because then then it's all a sin. It's a mortal or a venal sin if you're not recycling or you're not walking enough. And that's not it. And one of the cardinal disagreements I have with anybody about climate change is the idea that we need to eliminate fossil fuels. Are you stupid? That is ridiculous. We cannot eliminate fossil fuels. It is so easy to make plastic. We can talk about recycling and everything else. What the fossil fuels do is ridiculous. And we're going to need them to make the EV stuff. Morons. However, I think I can make the conservative argument for green energy.
I'm going to turn my mic off. Let's go, Bill.
Okay. This is the conservative argument. This is what I feel is the conservative argument for green energy. It is our FU card to the Saudis. That's what it is. It gives us the ability to uncouple from the world oil market. We can produce enough oil, enough natural gas, and enough green energy to be just fine in America. We don't necessarily have to import it. Now, that allows us to play in the market. There could be a time where it makes a lot of sense for us to import oil based on the price. also allows us to be a huge net exporter if it makes sense. We can F with the Saudis the same way they've been F1 with us. We can get in and play in the oil market. Am I saying we all need to go green? No. But if we could get a significant portion of America's energy generated through green facilities and means, we then can tell the Saudis to go F themselves. And that, to me, is the bottom line goal in green energy. I am less concerned about saving the planet because there are a lot of other countries out there, and I'm not certain they're all swimming in the same direction. But I'm super concerned about being beholden to the Saudis and the rest of the Middle East for
agree
oil.
with you entirely on that.
That's where I want to go. See, I can get a conservative to say maybe we should look at green energy.
I'm okay
That's
in
the
that
argument.
sense. I also think there's a lot of oil and gas here in Colorado and
yeah.
in the United States, and we should take advantage of that.
Yes.
It provides a lot of jobs. It supports a lot of people, and it gets us to energy independence.
And to me, it is the raw crude, what it can be made into is one of the most universal products we have. We don't have a lot of raw materials that can be changed and through chemistry create so many different things. It is ridiculous, the utilitarian nature of crude oil, that we have to lean into it. And natural gas is such a wonderful complement to it. And we need to make the money. You make lots of money. Even the rank and file oil jobs are great paying jobs, and they're wonderful for the Colorado economy. And so I think that what we do is we look at where does it make sense for the oil and gas, and then where can we supplement the green energy? One of those examples.
I'd be fine with that.
Yeah,
All the above, brother.
Yeah, one of the examples is the thing that I think, one of the things I think Joe Biden got right in his, what was it, the Inflation Reduction Act, was portions of his green energy platforms. And in that bill, there are huge tax breaks for companies that invest into green energy. And what that means is by either getting green energy into your facility or manufacturing green energy products. Now, it seems weird, but the important part there are the batteries for the EVs. Anything, your batteries for your electronic, for your EV mower, your EV leaf blower, your EV cars, your EV semis. We need to be able to manufacture batteries. And this incentive is tremendous for any company to come into America and build an EV battery factory. You can almost wipe out your entire tax debt for the first 3 to 5 years based on some of the tax rebates. It is ridiculous, and it has, and this is the echo that it had around the world. When the EU last fall, got together, one of their top items was that they were peeing their pants over what Biden had done because they are scared to death that everybody's going to come here and start making the batteries, and they're going to have to get the batteries from us. They talked about all major European car manufacturers have already announced plans to have an EV factory for battery production here. They already have announced plans. The European Union is going, they're leaving. What the hell do we do about this? They're scared to death.
I don't mind that we're building here. I don't mind the fact that we're not taxing, and I don't mind the fact that as long as we're taking the cobalt mines away from the little African kids that are enslaved there. That's all good stuff. But I do pause when you get into kind of government manipulation of markets like that. But
yeah, there are some things there. There are some things as far as the government manipulation, although I would say I am much happier with tax rebates than I am with subsidies. If I had to pick one versus the other, I would like to incentivize you based on tax rebates instead of subsidies. That's where I think that's where I think the carrot needs to be. But I'm absolutely right. The manipulation of the market is tough.
It's only going to go downhill from here if we find a place to agree at 6:20 in the morning.
I know, this is ridiculous.
It's only going to get worse from here, and we'll be yelling at each other.
How cool would that be for America to be able to manipulate the Saudi oil price? How cool would it be for us to be able to get into that market and to tank things when they need the cash, to be able to crush Russia and even the Iran oil exports? That would be super cool. That's my goal. The idea of leaning into the green energy for me is it's my FU card. So
here's a good text message from 5442. Take the management of the forest out of the federal government's hands. I've worked on this for years and years and years, and I sit on the board of American Lands Council, which is making the argument that the federal government has illegally maintained its control of too much federal land, particularly in the western United States. So the way it worked is that when a state joined the union, right, it became part of the United States of America. The land originally belonged to the federal government. And then over time, it would go to the states. Yeah. That's why you have so much federal land in the western United States and almost none in the Midwest and none in the East, because that was traditionally what happened, went to the states.
Yeah.
And then it was like the 1970s, Congress was like, nah, we like it too much. There's too many resources. We're not going to give it back to the states. And you do have really big problems with federal land management. One, this kind of seesaw back and forth that you get between the administrations where Trump's going to move BLM to Grand Junction. We're going to make it, we're going to open it up for oil and gas leases, exploration, development, all that stuff. And then different president and all of that shuts down. We move BLM back to Washington, D.C. And so you get this kind of ping pong in between the administrations.
And that's hard for corporations to make long-term plans because you can't make that long-term investment. It takes a lot of time to delve into whether or not those minerals, that natural gas, that oil is there. That's an investment of time.
All that stuff.
It is.
And then you have some counties that are almost entirely federal land, like 80% federal land. So they can't do anything to develop schools. They have no tax base in order to grow their communities. And then you get into the wildfire management issue where the federal government tends to respond a lot slower than a state government. And the quickest is typically, and we show all these in the documentary that's on the Centennial Institute YouTube page, is private landowners. So if their own land's burning, like they're going to pay. Oh, yeah. They're going to get that put out very, very quickly. And in fact, I think it's on average of 3 days in the delay of a wildfire response if the federal government owns the land.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
What they've been doing, and they're working through a lawsuit in Utah, is to free up this land back to the states. Right. So you could say, well, hold on. And this is often the argument against it. But what about all these national parks? What about all this BLM land? What about all this natural land? That would be the question I would ask. Yep. So has nothing to do with national parks, right? Yosemite is going to be fine. A lot of it is BLM land, and you're going to hand it to the states. Now, I believe that the people that live closest to it can best decide what to do with that land. If they want to develop it, they can develop it. If they want to keep it as a state park, like what I think would happen in Colorado and California, right? The voters are going to go, we want it protected more. Well, then they have the right to do that. But to allow bureaucrats in Washington, D.C., who have often not even stepped foot on the land or anywhere near the land that they get to manage, and they don't know the people and they don't know the issues, to have just total dominant control over it, I think that's a problem.
Oh, yeah. So, I would agree with you. That is a huge problem. The only caveat I would put in there about letting the locals manage it is I would be super concerned about natural resources. And only in Colorado, it would be water. And I would be really concerned about if we are letting someone come in and develop it, what happens to those water rights. And the only reason that I'm so sensitive to it is that we have really close family friends that have a ranch on eastern Colorado, and I understand how important their water rights are to them and the function of their ranch continuing to be able to have life. And they always talk about how it's Denver, it's the cities that are so worried about whether or not we can have green grass. And he's like, we're feeding you. We're trying to raise cattle and corn and sorghum. You understand? That's what we need the water for. It's not because we want pretty golf courses or we have pretty lawns. We're okay. And as you know, farmers are okay having dirt lawns as long as the crops grow.
Right.
That's
exactly.
okay. That's the only thing I would be worried about.
There's an old saying in Colorado that whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting.
Yes, it is. Is it ever?
And look, we had an interstate water compact. That was between the states. In fact, the federal government didn't really have much to do with that until Joe Biden stepped in and said, you guys need to deal with this because California. And then on the water issue, a lot of it is storage.
Yes.
So, for instance, in California, they'll have like record snow years, huge dumps of snow, and then it all washes into the ocean.
Yeah, they've got nowhere to keep it because they wouldn't build dams.
They wouldn't build
reservoirs.
Dams, right, exactly.
Yes, because of the nature. because of all the nature and the other stuff. They didn't want to do it. And so that's, it is their own problem. And now they come to us and going, sorry, we didn't
need your
plan for
water.
this.
Yeah.
Which, again, is the idea that we didn't plan for what was coming, and now you need to give us more of your stuff, which, no. Go back to your avocado toast. No.
So all of that will develop over federal lands, but we've got so many more clips to play of Biden and Trump and Mayorkas. I mean, it really was a rumble down at the border, both of them going at each other. We're going to cover that. But hey, imagine effortlessly gliding open your cabinets and drawers to reveal neatly arranged shelves that showcase your belongings. With roll-em-out shelves, you'll easily access your pots, pans, and other essentials, eliminate chaos, and increasing speed and functionality in your home. Roll-em-out shelves understands that every home's storage needs are unique. Whether you're dealing with tight corners or expansive cabinets, your shelves will be custom built to maximize every inch of available space. Joyce and Brent Tolliver, the mom and son dynamic duo, leave satisfied customers wherever they go, and their all 5-star reviews confirm this. Here's what some overjoyed customers are saying. Joyce replied to my initial email and scheduled the estimate quickly. Installation was quick and clean. The shelves are very sturdy and made better than most I've seen. Very, very happy customer. Life-changing. So much wasted space in our kitchen cabinets. My space has literally tripled, and I am so happy. Begin the affordable transformation in your home for less than $1,000 when Roll-em-Out Shelves efficiently organizes your space with sturdy Baltic birch shelves built right here in Colorado and guaranteed for life. Call for your free in-home estimate today, 303-475-9601. That's 303-475-9601 or rollemoutshelves.com. Tell them Jeff sent you. rollemoutshelves.com. We'll get your calls, text, and this rumble at the border. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
Good morning. We're discussing the rumble at the border. Donald Trump and Joe Biden down there. Definitely pointing out the fact that this is going to be probably the biggest issue in this election is illegal immigration and the border. We'll get to your calls in just a second. Blake, wanted to check in with you. What are you looking at for news at the top of the hour?
You know what? I just heard that song, Every Step You Take. I just thought of a great thing we could do with every step Biden takes. Because, I mean, it is, right? It's dramatic. If you saw him yesterday on the border, oh, my goodness. Every step you're wondering, okay, is this guy going to make it? Yep, we're, so, anyway, every step you take. President Biden, okay, Billy will figure out something with that. Colorado, let's see, they're going to fully fund schools in 2000 for the first time since 2009. We'll talk more about that. And as you mentioned, President Biden and former President Trump both on the southern border, and Biden now calling on Trump to support the border bill that was rejected a month ago. He says it is an incredible bill. It's just amazing. Well, why didn't he do this 3 years ago,
right.
4 years ago? Right?
Exactly.
So that and much more. A little Chick-fil-A story coming up. So we'll talk to you then.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I appreciate it, Blake. All right, let's go to Tony, line 1 from Littleton, Colorado. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Tony.
Morning.
Hey, good morning. I was going to chime in a little bit about the discussion on climate change and the green energy. And it's tying a little bit to what Billy was talking about, that tax break. Mm-hmm. And that tax break is like kind of an endless tax break. They can keep taking that tax break for all the years that they continue to build green plants, green products, whatever. Many economists have said, we were always looking for this recession to come, right? I mean, forever. A recession's coming, it's coming. They say in part it's not coming because there's been so much construction by companies around that green energy tax break. A second issue around oil. I'm sure we are at record production, right? I mean,
yes.
Highest ever, and we are a net exporter already.
Yep, we are.
Last year,
is that coming from Colorado though? I don't think it's coming from Colorado.
I'm not. I don't know the sources.
Just U.S. Just
nationally. Last year was the first year as they would call it, uncoupling. We had a growth GDP and a 2% decline in total carbon output. That's never happened before. That's in part because of all the green efforts that are made. But I think the biggest concern, and something that warrants some attention, China has predicted that by 2040, I think, they will employ more people in green energy manufacturing than the global auto industry combined. And we were the big car manufacturers of the 1900s, and that was the industry that launched our economy, if you will. And now we're letting China take that role, and Germany, number 2, take that role as the key manufacturer of all of the windmills, batteries, all of it. And you already know they have the number 1 EV auto company now, right? In BYD.
Oh yeah, that's a dream. That's nuts.
I thought that auto and I've talked to auto dealers here in Colorado that the EVs have not been what they thought they were. They're going to go to hybrids. They really think that hybrids are where you can make it happen.
I think that's probably right.
Issues,
right now,
are problems. And
I think there's certainly all those issues, but the idea is they're focused on it. That China is focused on developing green manufacturing, and they kind of chuckle at us that we can't even figure out if climate change is real. While they're going to supply the world, they're going to have the auto industry of the 21st century that we've walked away from. Hopefully now we get some consistency. I'm not saying it's going to replace oil or oil immediately or even predominantly, but I think good business tells us don't just hand the industry to China, and that's what Biden is put his claws back in it. He's giving incentives to try and produce. What we don't want to have is another president comes along and says, nope, drill baby drill, we just need more oil, and then stop the whole progress moving forward
Tony,
again.
I think most conservatives aren't opposed to, especially free market development. So if the market itself has a really strong demand for green energy, and that's what people want, and they're happy, to pay whatever price that requires, there's no problem with that. I think the concern is, one, you end up with some of these environmentalists that are it's like a religion to them, right? Like I want to talk about plastic bags for just a second. Like everything in the grocery store is in a plastic bag. Your bread.
Not anymore in Colorado.
I mean,
no. Yeah, the shopping bag.
The shopping bag. But everything else,
the containers,
your
absolutely.
chicken, your vegetables, everything comes in a plastic bag except for your ability to carry it to a car.
Yeah.
So you end up with this kind of like bizarro, like religious level type of fiddling with government and this this belief that the straws, for instance, we're going to save turtles with straws, and so you end up with this effort to try to do that that comes with the environmentalist movement, and then you have the direct attacks on oil and gas, like what they're trying to do at the state capitol by literally banning new drilling by 2030.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Let's use the bags just as a moment, because it's an easy one. So a billion bags a week in this country, and they have a life expectancy of 15 minutes. They get 15 minutes of use. Now, some of us use them for trash and other things, but basically 15 minutes of use on a billion bags a week. I mean, that's one of those that's like, okay, it's not all that big a deal, but it's like, how bad is it that we have to, we have to carry cloth bags in and start put our stuff in cloth bags?
Tony, I know, but I think Jeff's point though was the plastic packaging inside. We can carry the canvas bags, etc., to the store, to the car, but are we necessarily making a dent in the plastic economy if everything that we're carrying inside those canvas bags is enclosed in plastic? Doesn't it seem somewhat redundant?
Your point is the point. I understand the point, but I'm saying if a billion bags is just wasteful, it's just wasteful. I mean, it's a small thing. It's not even. It's like. Well, it's not even a sacrifice, right? I mean, it's like, okay, well, let's not burn down a billion bags a week unnecessarily.
I mean, see the point. Yeah.
If we don't have to, we don't have to. I mean, it seems like it's a no-brainer because it's easy, no pain, and we just quit throwing a billion bags into the ocean.
And Tony, to your point, if that's where the consumer goes, if that's where the market goes, conservatives have no concern about it. But going back to this notion of kind of legislating all this morality that comes from the environment, that's where you get conservatives that are frustrated, because it's almost like a religious viewpoint. And then you just see all the hypocrisy in it. We talked about this earlier, where like if climate change is really an issue, and yet everybody pushing climate change at the elite level is flying around in private jets, it just seems, I don't know. It doesn't connect with me, and it doesn't seem like the issue is really that critical and serious if everyone's flying around in private jets. But Tony, I appreciate the call.
Yeah. And I appreciate it, Tony. Thank you. And you've gained some good points. One of the things I jump in on the idea of letting the market decide is I find that an interesting premise, only because we subsidize fossil fuel industries.
Yeah, right.
And so the idea that it's like, well, if the green energy can succeed on its own in the market,
then you're like,
then why
oil
are we
and
subsidizing
gas gets all your subsidies too?
Yeah, I think it was 2023 was the very first time when the green energy and the oil industry subsidies were nearly on par, somewhere around $20 billion a year for both industries. And so we're subsidizing both at about the same rate, which again, I'm not sure. It depends on how those subsidies exist. But the argument is, if the argument is that the green energy can't survive on its own based on all these subsidies, well, then the other argument would be, can the fossil fuel industry survive on its own without all these subsidies? It's only a fair question.
Here's a good text message, 7127. Your caller's missing one point. China may laugh at us deciding about climate change, but China sure isn't doing anything to stop it.
No, but I think they aren't. But what Tony's point is that they're leaning into it. They understand the technology is coming, and for us to say, nope, we disagree with the technology, so we're not going to develop it, is going to hurt hurt us in the coming decades because the technology is coming and will be used whether we like it or not. And Tony makes an excellent point about BYD. BYD, for the first year, last year, BYD overtook Tesla as the number one global producer of EVs. And that's why do you think Tesla's cutting prices? That's in part. Elon Musk is terrified of what BYD can do. They control every facet of production, from the design of the car through it rolling off the line, everything, every nut, every bolt, every wire, every seat, every battery is all produced by BYD. They don't have to subcontract anything. You understand what kind of market force that gives them? It's nuts to think about.
Market force is a generous description. It sounds like the Soviet Union with total control. They just happen to be playing in the free market.
But the issue is this, though. But I'm talking the company. The company operates, as independently as you can in China. But you're talking about But you're talking about this, though. You're talking about imagine if you gave Elon Musk or GM or Honda or Ford total production control from step 1 to step 1,000. That gives you an efficiency in the market that nobody else can compete with because you have no subcontractors. That's the big advantage. BYD just released in the last week a supercar that is as fast, if not faster, than the production the Teslas, also Ferraris, Lamborghinis, all of theirs. The thing's a killer. It does 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds. And at the same week, they released a $14,000 EV in China. You can buy it for $14,000. Now, we laughed and poo-pooed when the Korean cars came over here. Kia and Hyundai, that family's doing just fine in market share. And the market share for EVs in the U.S. is growing. It's not growing as fast, and a lot of the car manufacturers are dialing back because they went out and said, we've got to ramp up our EV production because everybody's going to buy the EV from us. They were looking at filling the total market share. They weren't looking at a portion. They overproduced. That's
Mercedes
their fault.
Pulling that back too.
That is their fault for overproduction, and that's what we're seeing as a market correction. They thought they were going to sell more. Nope. But the market is growing slowly. BYD comes here. It's going to be a game changer because the Dolphin is their entry-level model that I'm talking about. That one allows a customization of features that we don't have in America. It's a basic car, but what China allows you to do is come in and you've got a dozen paint colors to choose from. You've got a dozen interior colors. You want to have a green car with a purple interior? You can order that for $14,000. That's the thing, is they have leaned into the idea of customizing the interior, rather than giving you all of this fancy electronics. They have a functional EV that's affordable, and they let you personalize it. That is a market winner, and that's dangerous if it comes here. It'll kill a lot of our manufacturing.
Learn something new. Interesting. Thanks. I appreciate that, Bill. Jeff, I want to hear from my friends at Dan Kaplan Law. Dan suggests that you should choose a lawyer who shares your values because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. Dan Kaplan is the son of a police officer. Dan is also a former seminarian. Dan has dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Kaplan Law is the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Kaplan Law is a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases based on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. If you need Dan's help, call 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551, or hit dankaplanslaw.com. That's Dan, C-A-P-L-I-S law.com. We're going to get to You Choose the News. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
All right, let's get to You Choose the News.
Yes, that is my theme song there, but this is the theme song for Friday. Oh, no, it's not. The theme song for Friday's over here. There we go. Yeah, hard to press the right button on a Friday. It's been a long week. All right, it is time for the loser edition of You Choose the News.
You are one pathetic loser.
Loser!
Let's go. Loser! You're a loser!
The Losers Club. Bunch of losers.
You're such a loser. You made me feel like a loser!
She's a loser. You are such a loser.
Loser.
Yes, the loser edition of You Choose the News. We have scoured the interwebs earlier this week for great stories that were deemed unworthy by the host of the program, Jeff Hunt, and our cohort in crime, Blake Olson, who's joining us from the newsroom. Yes, these did not make the cut, but they have a second chance at glory. Here we go, gentlemen. Your choices today are bootstrappy, freedom-loving American now being persecuted by the state, a misunderstanding about the process, New York says get used to the migrants, and Christmas, now the one holiday this woman hates. Jeff,
let's do Christmas.
Yes. Christmas is now the one holiday that Kamila Grabska, 36 years old of Ireland, hates. She will never celebrate Christmas again because it has cost her over $820,000. Yes. See, Miss Grabska had claimed that she had been injured. She was hurt, and she needed an insurance settlement. She couldn't even lift heavy bags. She had to stay in bed during her bad days. Walking around left her in constant pain in her back, her neck, her thoracic spine. It was so much pain that she needed $800,000 from the insurance company. And everything went well until a picture taken in January 2018, during the time in which Miss Grabska was sometimes bedridden with pain. She's competing in a Christmas tree throwing contest and wins. Yes, they have a picture of her throwing the tree and accepting the award and happily high. She tried to excuse her behavior by saying, I was just trying to live a normal life, and it hurt a lot.
I've been healed.
Yes, exactly. Christmas miracles all around. All right, Jeff, second story. Bootstrappy, freedom-loving American now being persecuted by the state, misunderstanding about the process, or New York says, get used to those migrants.
Let's go to the Big Apple.
New York says you just got to get used to those migrants, and we are talking about Staten Island specifically. Staten Island city officials say there's nothing we can do about these immigrants. You're going to have to let them wander around, poop on the street, and maybe even wander into your backyard. No, we're not talking about illegal migrants. We are talking about illegal turkeys. Yes, they have a troublesome turkey population that basically started in the late 1990s. It was first documented on Staten Island. They were once contained on the borough's east shore. But turkeys like to do turkey stuff, which includes making lots of little turkeys. So now all over Staten Island, they say there's nothing we can do about the wild turkeys. You're going to have to get used to the illegal migrants. Take that. Yes.
That's a problem that wouldn't have been a problem, 100 years ago.
I know.
It would have just been dinner for people.
Yes, turkeys are delicious.
But now everyone gets their food from a grocery store instead of their own hands.
I think this should be an outreach. This should be a catch your own turkey in Staten Island. There's some sort of program. Alrighty, Blake Olson joining us for our final story this morning. Bootstrappy, freedom-loving American now being persecuted by the state, or a misunderstanding about the process.
Bootstrapping American for 100.
Oh, thank you, sir. Bootstrappy American is now being persecuted by the state. Oddly enough, this has a name that we're familiar with, Steve Irwin, but is not the one that was felled by the stingray out of Australia. This is a Steve Irwin who temporarily lives in Seattle. Now, he's facing criminal charges now because he has decided to explore the wonderful outdoors of Seattle. And he's decided, I'm going to start living maybe in the forest, maybe a city park. Yes, I'm going to start living in a city park. And in fact, I'm going to borrow an excavator and come and dig out the side of a hillside in a popular Seattle park and then return later to build a cabin. Yes. The man has decided, who is homeless, obviously, has decided
Not
that
anymore.
he's just going to live in a park and has gone far enough to get an excavator, dig out a hole in the side of a hill, and then build a cabin. When police came over to tell him you can't do this anymore, he started yelling, "Get off my lawn! Get off my lawn, you kids!" He's very mad at them. Very, very, very mad. Hey, Blake, thanks for playing along with us.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate you. We'll talk to you in a sec. And that is the end of You Choose the News. As always, I am the giant loser, and Jeff and Blake are our winners. And remember, this You Choose the News is totally not sponsored by Roll Them Out Shelves. Please book your free home estimate today. You can organize your kitchen or bath. They do wonderful work. See them at rollemoutshelves.com. Do not tell them you heard about it here. Whatever you do, they're going to charge you more. They'll throw things at you. Salem, you tell them about 710K in US, they'll love you. You talk about You Choose the News, Yeah, things get ugly. I'm just warning you. Tip from us. All right, back to you, sir.
All right. We've got a lot to still cover. We've got into the Trump-Biden border rumble that took place down there yesterday. And then Kristi Burton Brown's going to join us in the top of the 7 o'clock hour. She's got a new article in Colorado Politics, the top 5 list of losing legislation from the session so far. Of course, they can introduce even dumber bills than they already have.
I always have dumb ideas.
Nothing compared to what they can find down there. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS. Kid Rock today. We should play this song a lot.
Let's do it. 7 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver,
Morning.
Colorado. It's Friday, March 1st, 2024.
The weekend.
TGIF.
Oh, yeah.
Looking good. My daughter's celebrating her birthday today.
Oh, happy birthday.
Well, happy birthday, Taylor.
Yeah. Oh, and happy birthday to Joan from Lakewood as well. Her birthday as well.
Yeah,
So
that's
kinda
right.
cool.
March
Yeah,
1st.
happy birthday.
Good day. Taylor was born. We spent 94 days in the hospital with her. She was 1 pound. Oh my gosh, it was 15 years ago now, so I'm forgetting. But 1 pound, 9 ounces, I think, somewhere around there. Wow. She was the size of my hand. Jeez. She was born at 27 weeks gestation, so she was still in the second trimester. And Nicole had preeclampsia, and which is where your body just weirdly starts shutting down because of a pregnancy. So Nicole's kidneys started to fail. So we took her in, and they're like, we got to deliver the baby like today, right now.
Wow.
And we didn't even have a name picked out or
Yeah.
anything like that. And I was like, what was 15 years ago, 27 years old.
Yeah.
So
you were a big Taylor Swift fan.
Yeah,
so
right.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
And we ran around, trying to figure out what to do. And I remember being in the hospital room on my knees, begging God to take my life instead of my daughter's. Kind of first time you ever, as a person, come into that.
Oh, yeah.
And as a parent, that continues. You spend the rest of your life feeling that way, but.
And sometimes the other way, going, please, dear God, just kill them. Do you know what they're doing to me? Please, okay, Mamie, just something. Please, teach them a lesson. Please, I'm working here. I'm trying so hard.
And she made it out. She's perfectly fine. She's healthy.
That's amazing. I have a similar story, but on the other end of things. Now, is Taylor? Is she what in the order?
She's number one.
No, she's number one. Now that's crazy to think about.
She's my favorite daughter too.
The only one. That is crazy because our oldest, Max, spent just over 6 weeks in the intensive care unit after he was born, but for an exactly opposite reason. He was the biggest baby born on that floor in the previous 6 months. My wife, not a big person.
Guy.
No, I'm not a big guy. And my wife is tiny. I mean, we're talking 5'2".
Really?
And we did not know at the time. We figured it out with the subsequent pregnancies that she has third-term gestational diabetes. So basically, in the third term, the baby goes whoop and inflates like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Really?
Because of it, yeah. So rapid weight growth and size growth. Ridiculous.
Wow.
Outpacing the normal curve. And so we didn't know this at the time. And they do call it medical practice for a reason. And Max got stuck in the birth canal for 2 minutes. And that's a problem because, again, do a little science here. When you're coming through the birth canal, there is so much pressure that is created that the baby's internal organ systems shut off. Outside of heart and brain, everything else shuts down. Kidneys, liver, all of that.
Really?
All of that turns off because of all the pressure, and then it comes back on. It's just because of the pressure.
Yeah.
He was stuck there. When he came out, it didn't turn back on. They came to me in the first 24 hours and said, you need to prepare yourself. He's not going to make it. They tried to pull him out, the little suction thing. Yeah. He had a giant cephalohematoma on the back of his head and still has a bald spot because they ruined all the follicles. They had to break his collarbone just to get him out of the birth canal. And at one point, they were thinking about, are they going to push him back in and try a C-section? And the entire time, I'm watching my wife bleed out. I mean, I'm just watching just pints and pints of blood pour out of her because, of course, they've opened her up stem to stern. In order to try to get the baby out. So, it is chaos. He comes out and he gets a 0 APGAR score and is blue.
0.
Taylor non-responsive.
Had a 9.
Yeah.
And she was
non-responsive. Absolutely
size of my hand.
Non-responsive. And so he goes out and his thyroid burnt out as well during the process. So he comes home. Now, he's there for 6 weeks, about that, and then a little bit older than that, a couple days beyond that, comes home and he's on 13 different medications. The day he comes home, we have physical therapy that is in the house working with him because he's coming off of so many heavy drugs. He has done more drugs than most rock stars. In that
Keith Richards.
Oh yeah, they poured so much stuff into him. It is horrible. It was he's 3 weeks old, and in some ways he's going through a little bit of withdrawal because he has tremors. He has tremors because he's coming down off of some of the drugs, and his arms are shaking. Yeah, while he's intubated, and we're watching the oxygen levels.
How's he doing now?
Now he's incredible care. He's an incredible kid. They call him again. Super emotional. He is a functional adult in a manner that is remarkable given the brain injury that he suffered. Oh, forgot this. 24 hours after being born, after going through all that, suffers a massive stroke. And it's down the middle of his brain so that he has a bilateral issue where his left and right sides of his body don't talk very well. Yeah, awful stuff. He couldn't ride a bike until 9 or so because his left and right side couldn't work together. So he couldn't work the pedals because he would have to tell each individual foot to, Wow. He wasn't verbal until almost 4. No words. We had a lot. Yeah, so there were lots of challenges. Now, today, you'd talk to him, you wouldn't notice anything's wrong with him. Completely and totally. I mean, we call it an invisible disability. But if you talk to him for about a half an hour or so, you will hear hiccups in his thought process because things get stuck. And it takes him a while to find the words. And we go a whole long things as far as he has some real challenges based on development, but there is a real story in God's redemption because when we got a brain scan, and this I won't go too long into it, they found that his brain had rewired around the stroke, and there's certain things that he should not be able to do. And I talked to a really high-priced lawyer out of New York, because again, we're like, who's responsible for this? Talked to him, and the lawyer goes, wait, he was in the birth canal how long? And he was dealing with a case at that time where a girl was in the birth canal for 10 seconds longer. She will never walk, and she will never feed herself, ever. Wow. And he's functional. So, again, he's a gift. But
amazing.
Yeah. We'll have to share stories off air because, it's going to get me right here. Give me all the here in the heart. Yeah.
I love that, Bill.
Yeah, it is. It's
I
amazing.
love that.
And he's a
I love
miracle.
to see your heart as a father, too, man.
And it is
You're
so
good
much
pops.
and it's so much of just God's influence and his will and his blessings.
Yeah. Well, I will say this just to wrap up. We'll get to Blake here. There are angels and there are NICU nurses.
Yeah.
And they are right there. It's they're like one step below the angels.
Yep.
They're amazing.
They are. They're so incredible.
So let's get to Blake Olson with the news. Good morning, Blake.
Morning.
Amen to that. Hey, morning. My two new heroes, Max and Taylor. Happy birthday, Taylor. 35 and mostly cloudy in Denver. Expecting highs in the low 60s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, Colorado marking an education milestone to fully fund schools for the first time since 2009. Governor Polis says it'll provide teachers with the resources they need. Amy Baca-Ohlert, president of the Colorado Education Association.
We're only going to be at 1989 funding levels, but it's a step forward from the over $10 billion that have been underfunded in our schools since the inception of the budget stabilization factor.
They had a Taylor Swift-themed rally at the Capitol Thursday. Loveland police have arrested 45-year-old Asa Peck in connection with the murder of 49-year-old Chantel Wilkes. She was found dead in a river near Barnes Park in August of 2022. Developers looking into plans to improve Pena Boulevard. Roughly 130,000 vehicles travel to and from DIA every day. They will take ideas at flydenver.com. President Biden calling on former President Trump to support the border bill that was rejected last month. Playing politics again.
It's time for the speakers and some of my Republican friends in Congress who are blocking this bill to show a little spine. Conservative leaders supported this.
Both Biden and Trump at the southern border Thursday. Biden says the bill is the toughest, most efficient, most effective border security bill ever seen. The House has approved a short-term funding bill to avoid a partial government shutdown, kicking it down the road again, buying lawmakers time. The largest wildfire in Texas history has spread to Oklahoma. The Smokehouse Creek fire has scorched over 1 million acres. And Chick-fil-A telling customers to throw away the unused Polynesian dipping sauces from February 14th to February 27th due to allergy concerns. So if you're like me and you have all those dipping sauces that your sons bring in and put them in the refrigerator, make sure you throw those ones away. Yeah, right. Your kids do that too, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think in the fridge, everybody has that one shelf in the fridge where all the ketchup packets and things go. Everyone has that.
Absolutely. From about 5 different fast food restaurants.
Yes.
All right,
Always.
I won't talk anymore. 31 in Broomfield, 33 in Aurora, 35 in Denver. Nuggets over the Heat, 103-97. Avs shut out the Blackhawks 5-0. Jeff and Bill continue on Friday morning. Blake Olson, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
All right, 7-11 on a Friday, and we are at it. Joining us on The line is Kristi Burton Brown. She's got an article in Colorado Politics, the top 5 list of losing legislation from session, and she caveats it perfectly so far. So far.
I love that.
And because we know that there's no end to the depth of the stupidity that can be found at the state capitol right now. All right, Kristi Burton Brown, thanks so much for joining the program.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you both. Good to be on you, and congrats on the show. It's really doing well so far from everything I hear.
Well, thank you. Well, we've got incredible guests like Kristi Burton Brown on. All right, Kristi, tell us some of these bills. What are the top 5 list of losing legislation so far?
So what's funny is 2 days ago, I found out about another bill, which is why the so far part is true. That I was like, if I'd only known about this bill, it totally would have made the list. And so that is one where they're actually trying to create what they call an enterprise at the state capitol, which is basically just another way to tax people. They call it fees.
Wait,
and as long as
hold on,
they...
Kristi. We're not talking Star Trek in the spaceship? I was a little excited. I was super excited when I heard they're going to start an enterprise. I'm like, yes, I'm sorry. I'm joining Starfleet.
Nerd alert.
Yeah, no, not? Okay, so I'm sorry. You can continue. I'm going to go pout in the corner.
Yeah, it's nothing exciting like that. Instead, it's the way they use to get around Tabor and raise taxes on people. And so what they're doing is creating this enterprise. It hasn't passed yet, so who knows, maybe it'll die, although I don't have my hopes up for that. If you have a large vehicle, and all throughout the bill, they describe what a large vehicle is, how much your vehicle can weigh. And based on the weight of your vehicle, they are now going to tax you more when you register your vehicle, specifically for the purpose of helping vulnerable people on the roadway. And who those vulnerable people are cyclists and pedestrians who choose to walk in the road. I'm not making that up. If you read the bill, which I was reading it yesterday, this is what it does. And so it would raise the state just about $100 million over the next 5 years. And it obviously, I mean, Jeff, you have 4 kids. I don't know how much you have, Bill.
4.
If you have to have a minivan, okay, 4 also. If you have to have a minivan, if you live in rural Colorado, if you're a construction worker, you have a truck, just trying to provide for your family, get by, you have a big vehicle, they're going to charge you more because cyclists and pedestrians choose to walk in the road.
Oh, wow.
So,
wait, okay.
It should have made the list.
And then the trucking companies will get an exemption, but the rest of us that don't have high-priced lobbyists
I
won't.
do want to know, though, that if I have to pay more because of the cyclists and the people walking the road, how many am I then allowed to hit? I mean, is there a number they give me? I mean, not killing, but just maim them a little bit. Just kind of bump them, I just want to know.
Oh, my goodness. No, well, and see, they would use that reasoning. They'd be like, see, this is why we're running the bill. Because people with large vehicles are the ones who hit all the pedestrians.
That's why I can't have this
what
job.
they're saying.
I mean, there is an element in the radical left, we've talked about this before, that believes you should just walk everywhere or ride a bike.
Yeah.
And they all live in cities. It's like... sometimes if I take the light rail downtown, it's like I go into a different universe and with people with totally different experiences. And I remember when they push these types of agendas where they want to penalize you for having cars, it's like, I've got kids in track, I've got kids in basketball, I've got kids in theater. We need to go to the groceries. I need to pick up hay for our goats. We drive all over the place to try to just live our normal lives. Do you expect me to just either cancel all that so the kids can't do any activities, or are we just taking the bus everywhere, or are we driving these little BYD car Dolphins and everyone's packed into there and I got the hay strapped on top? It's like they live in a just completely different universe and they want to force that universe upon all the rest of us to drive a political agenda. Sorry.
Oh, exactly.
I get frustrated.
No, I agree with you entirely. And the article I wrote highlights multiple bills that in the same way try to push the agenda they want on the rest of us. For example, and I thought they're pro-animal, usually pro-animal rights, but they did a pet tax bill, which actually got so much outrage directed at it that the sponsor herself pulled it. But the odd thing about it, not only were they taxing people for having pets, including goldfish and lizards, by the way, and hamsters, you also have to register your pet with the state and specifically say whether you kept the pet in a cage, like if it's a hamster or a rat or something like that, or in a tank. And then if there was a fire at your home or another emergency, they would then let the first responder know what kind of a pet you had, whether it was in a cage, And then you had to register a caretaker of the pet other than yourself, so that person could also be contacted in the event of an emergency. So when the hamster was freed from its cage, presumably by the firefighter, that person would then be called. I mean, you would think I'm making all this stuff up, but it's a disaster, and it's directly in the words of their bills.
Right. And I think
do these ridiculous things.
Regina English was the one that introduced this one, and I think she admitted she didn't even read it before she introduced it. Which,
are you serious?
Yeah, which gets to my point that these guys are just delivery. They're bag boys and girls for special interest groups. I don't know who the special tax pet interest group is, but they are. They don't read these bills. They just kind of, oh, sure, thanks for your campaign donation. Here's the bill.
Well, and I'm convinced, Jeff and Bill, that what it is it's the state government, the liberals who are running a state government. They hate Tabor. They hate the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. They hate the fact that they can't raise taxes on us without our permission. And the people always say no, and they always vote for tax cuts. And so they literally look at the landscape out there and say, where can we raise fees? Where can, it's actually taxes, let's call them fees. And where can we just charge people for everything out there so they get more money into their enterprises and their funds and their general fund where they can direct wherever they want. So I think it's a symptom of that. And so some of those ideas are just downright insane. And other ones, like the larger vehicle tax, may actually pass. We saw the short-term rental bill, which is they're still in the middle of that one right now. Like, that's a serious threat to people around Colorado who own a second home, rent it out, really big for Colorado's tourism, like one of the biggest tourist states in the nation. I mean, I'm sure you guys know families. I know families who have a second home. That's how they afford their life in Colorado, which is extremely expensive. And the state's plan in the bill they're running that, I don't know, this one may die. There's a lot of opposition to it, but you have to keep fighting it. And we are fighting it at Advance Colorado. But it would quadruple taxes, 400% increase on taxes for families that just own a second rental home in Colorado and completely price out average people and just allow these big corporations to come in and have rentals, but not average families. It's, in my view, really disgusting that they're trying to price average people out of living and raising families in Colorado.
Well, and then that gets passed on to the renters. So what you'll end up happening in these ski towns like Breckenridge, Keystone, Vail, is that you're going to have two options as a visitor to Colorado. You stay at the Ritz-Carlton or you camp. Those are the only options you're going to have.
That's good.
Enjoy your winter camping because most of us can't afford to stay at the Ritz.
No, well, and tourism, not only is just a big industry for Colorado, but look at it on a local level. It helps local economies, brings in a lot of dollars at the local level all across Colorado. So not only are you hurting the families that own these rentals and the people who want to come in and have real options to stay, they're not, in many cases, they're not going to stay anymore. They're going to go over to Utah or somewhere else that also has skiing and also has outdoor activities, but is a lot cheaper. And Colorado's local economies are going to not get these dollars either.
Let's talk about the $3,000 payments to criminals. It just gets better.
Yeah, I mean, that's a real fun one. So not only, and this bill actually also did get killed, which is a good thing. Usually the ones that get killed in one session, they'll always come back in a different form next session, which is why I think it's important to still talk about it. But what this one would do is not only would taxpayers pay to, of course, house criminals in jail for the entire time they're there. We don't, have them work at all to pay off their own stay in jail. We don't do that. We have taxpayers funded entirely. But then once they're released, this bill would give them $3,000 of taxpayer money. The reasoning behind it, I will say one of the sponsors of the bill, actually, I would say he did have a good motivation to try and help reduce recidivism in Colorado. But here's the problem. Taxpayers shouldn't be on the hook for not only funding the entire stay in jail and all the societal costs of crime, but now also let's give $3,000 to criminals. There are nonprofits out there who want to help people who get out of jail integrate back into society. They should do that kind of stuff if they want to, if they think it reduces recidivism. But forcing taxpayers who are already injured by crime to then hand over another $3,000 to every criminal who's getting out of jail is a huge, huge problem. So that's what that bill was all about.
That is a huge problem, especially because the idea of handing a criminal $3,000 after they get out of jail, in certain instances, that can become an incentive because you start balancing, well, how long am I behind bars to get my $3,000? And so there's this financial incentive. And the other part that I have an issue with there is there are some work programs inside of jails and prison in which you can earn some money certain ways. And for me, if you're going to give them money when they're leaving, then give them opportunities to do some of the work inside, whatever that may be. That, to me, seems more functional because now you're rewarding work and you hope that behavior continues getting out. But having them sit in jail or prison, walking out and then saying, here's $3,000. There's no incentive. There's no motivation. There's also no lesson as far as work ethic to get you back into society. I'm not convinced that by handing somebody a pile of money, they're going to go, aha, the solution now is they need to go to work. I'm just not convinced.
No, I agree. I agree. And I think work programs shouldn't be optional in jail, to be honest with you.
Oh, heck yeah. Yes, absolutely.
It should be a requirement.
Yes.
It would stop a lot of the bad things that go on in jail. Like I've read about it fairly extensively. And we need to solve a lot of problems that go on in jail, and requiring work programs, and you help pay for your own stay in jail.
Yes.
And then if you also save up enough money to use it when you get out and be a productive member of society, that's great. That's what we all want to happen.
Yeah.
But the way it's going, it's criminal justice system, it's such a mess. And the liberals in Denver just continue to have terrible ideas that make it worse. I mean, Colorado has the fourth worst recidivism rate in the nation. We release violent offenders after they've served on average only 43% of their sentence.
That's ridiculous.
Which is why at Advance Colorado, that's why we got approved for the ballot title for a truth in sentencing ballot initiative. So we're about to go collect signatures on it.
Oh, you did get approved.
Good.
That's great. That's not easy right now. We talked to Aaron Lee, who's facing a bunch of challenges. It's become a partisan ballot
it's terrible
organization, but yeah.
And so it would require the violent criminals to serve at least 85% of their sentence, which is really popular. I mean, voters love it. We've polled it. Obviously, people in the legislature are pushing bills that when people hear about them, they don't want it. And they agree with us. They agree with conservatives on the issues. We just have to be able to get to the ballot and pass the laws through the people.
Yeah, that's weird that someone does something wrong and then they have consequences and you hold them to the consequence. That's a strange idea. I mean, I can see why, if someone was suspended from school, they would say, normally this is a 1-week suspension, but we're going to have you only serve half a day. That's just ridiculous.
Can we apply it to Donald Trump and his fine? So he only has to pay 43% of the fine.
Excellent point, sir.
I think the Democrats would
like
stop that.
Nicely
done. Colorado Ministry of Truth.
Oh yeah, that one, to my knowledge, is still alive. That's a reiteration of a bill run by Carrie Donovan a session or two ago, and she literally was giving the government the power to decide what was true and what wasn't true on social media. Huge outcry against that one. This one comes in, it's a little less bad, which is what they always try and do to make it tolerable enough to pass. But it would have the Attorney General's office give them the ability to study misinformation and disinformation online with the goal of allowing them to ban misinformation or disinformation online. Man. And we all know what a mess that is when government is the one that steps in and decides what's fake news, what's not, what can be printed, what can be posted. Because always, they're going to be biased. They're going to go to their own preference. So, that's its own problem. And then, of course, you have this big looming thing called the First Amendment that creates an even bigger problem, even if it is
a Christian
nationalist. A bad idea, even if it is misinformation. The government isn't supposed to come in and tell you can't post it. It's not the job of the government at all.
You know what our state really needs right now, and I'm so glad they're introducing this bill? We need Kyle Clark and Phil Weiser to team up and really go after misinformation. I saw Kyle Clark, really, that's the role of journalists, and that's the role of the Attorney General's office. And then once we get that, this state is just going to flourish. Oh, my goodness.
Some people may think so, but I think anytime you give the government control over what people say, we all know what a big problem that is. That's what you literally see go on in communist countries. It's one of the first things they do is crack down on people's ability to speak. And no one likes fake news. No one likes disinformation. I shouldn't say no one, but most reasonable people like us.
Some relish in it.
Right. We don't want it out there and being spread. So no one's out there defending that. Instead, what we're defending is the ability for people to have public conversations.
All right.
Things wrong.
Yep. No, and you have the freedom to challenge. I mean, we're Justin Trudeau might as well just jump in and be governor in Colorado at this point. All right, let's go to final one here. Quadrupling taxes and targeting Tabor. Oh boy, what are they doing to really go after Tabor down at the state capitol? By the way, we're talking with Kristi Burton Brown.
Yeah, it's so many things, Jeff. So many things they're doing to go after Tabor. Whether it's creating these enterprises and fees to get around asking voters. And the quadrupling of taxes, that's a short-term rental one, where they're trying to raise taxes from about 7% on these short-term rentals to 28%. And so this is something I think we really have to watch out for all throughout the session. A lot of times it comes in late bills, which at this point, anything that's introduced is considered a late bill. And often they try and slam them all at the end and eat away at Tabor, increase fees, create enterprises. Short-term rental one is one to really, really watch because they've been proposing other alternatives to it, and every single alternative to it is really bad and going to crush the average family's ability to make a living here in Colorado and tax us more and more, and also fail entirely to solve the real tax in Colorado, which is the property tax crisis that they still refuse to actually do anything about.
Kristi Burton Brown is the executive vice president of Advance Colorado. Her and Michael Fields are this dynamic duo. If you ask me who the smartest people in policymaking on the conservative side is in Colorado, I would absolutely point you to Advance Colorado. They are brilliant. They are fighting the good fight, and I can't give them enough praise. Kristi, thanks for covering what's going on down at the state capitol for us.
Thank you, Jeff and Bill. Great to be with you.
Hey, we all want a kinder, gentler way to experience wellness and to overcome pain. I'm thriving and fighting back my workout soreness with UltraCur. UltraCur is a patented, non-prescription natural capsule that works fast. Surveys show that 50% of people using UltraCur find relief within 48 hours, and half of those within 2 hours. Experience UltraCur for free. Go to any Denver Metro natural grocers and ask for the health coach or the vitamin manager for your free 3-day trial of UltraCur. UltraCur is fueled by patented technology to give you the true edge to support your peak wellness, energy, and active lifestyle. If you've tried everything without much success, even other natural curcumin products, you owe it to yourself to find UltraCur today. Give UltraCur UltraCur gives you your unique control over your daily wellness. It's gentle on your stomach, and it's a natural antioxidant. So get curious, Denver. Head to Natural Grocers. Grab your free 3-day UltraCur trial with no strings attached. Wondering about the research? Well, get the lowdown at getultranow.com. That's getultranow.com. We're going to dive into this border battle. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
At this hour in London, I'm Julia Chapman, and here are the top stories we're following. Joe Biden and Donald Trump both made trips to the U.S.-Mexico border as they seek to look tough on migration ahead of the election. Republican frontrunner Trump said he would take care of illegal migration if elected in November, as he met State Governor Greg Abbott. President Biden said more resources need to be allocated to border policing, blaming rank partisan politics for delays to the border reform bill. Record-high border crossings, which have fallen this year, have pushed migration to the top of many voters' minds. The Biden administration will investigate potential national security risks posed by Chinese-made smart cars that can gather sensitive information about Americans driving them. In New York, Haley Bianco explains.
The probe could lead to new regulations aimed at preventing China from using sophisticated technology in electric cars and other so-called connected vehicles to track drivers and their personal information. While the action stops short of a ban on Chinese imports, President Biden said he is taking unprecedented steps to safeguard Americans' data. He said Chinese cars could flood the U.S. market, posing risks to national security. Reporting in New York, I'm Haley Bianco, Salem News Channel.
And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm Julia Chapman in London on Salem News Channel. This hour in
Happy Friday to you. You've made it, friends. 7:35 on this Friday, March 1st. You've also made it into March. I can feel spring. It's almost there.
Yeah, but we got at least one more significant snowstorm coming because it's March in Colorado. And it will happen just as soon as the trees start blooming and just as soon as you plant that flower garden, snow comes the next day.
It's always, I remember when we first moved back here, that notion of not planting till after Mother's Day is really hard for people. They're like, no way, it's so nice. But then, of course, it hits you.
Yes, it does. Oh, we had a peach tree in the backyard growing up, and the number of seasons we would lose the crop because they would bloom early, and then we'd have the freeze. And you're like, well, no peaches this year.
I mean, in D.C., April is when they do the Japanese trees. The
cherry blossoms.
Cherry blossoms. Yep, down there. That's April. That's next month.
That is crazy. Oh, and speaking of Japanese, again, because I am not linear. Apologize, listener. I'm just not linear. That's not how my head works.
Squirrel,
it is. It's like squirrel. You mentioned the idea of Japan with Kristi Burton Brown talking, and we're going to immigration in a sec. She was talking about the weight and registering the car based on weight at DMV.
Yeah.
The thing is, there is some merit to the idea. However, as usual, the Democrats have gone the wrong direction, which this is a perfect encapsulation of having something that does have some merit to it and then completely coming to the wrong conclusion. And the example is Japan. When you register your car in Japan, it's based on the weight of the car and the size of the engine. And that's your registration cost. And the issue, and what they do is that money is to repair the roads, not to worry about you hitting the people or the bicyclists. That's not what they're looking at. They're like, no. And again, you pay more if you're in an urban area than if you're in a rural area. If you have a large vehicle in a rural area, you pay less than a large vehicle in an urban area.
It's how you live your life, and you're a food producer, so you can't transport your animals in a geo metro.
And what I look at is I look at this going, Japan has figured out this idea, and it works there, and there are some problems with it, but they take that idea and go, no, the bicyclists and the people. You're like, hang on. Look over there in Japan. They figured this out, and then you completely... This is why we can't have nice things. I'm sorry. Immigration. Continue, sir.
All right, let's get to the rumble down at the border between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. We have said on this program over and over and over again that some elections, not all, but some elections often come down to a single question. Think it's the economy, stupid, Bill Clinton, right? Sometimes it's just who can answer a single question better. I'll give you an example. In 2006, I worked for Rick Santorum in the Senate. The number one question in that election is who's going to get us out of Iraq. It didn't matter the quality of the candidate. It didn't matter the type of constituent services. None of that mattered. It just mattered if you were going to get the troops out of Iraq or if you were going to keep them there. And the voters said, Democrats, we want the troops out. And they pushed them into significant majorities in the House and Senate in 2006. This election, right now, if it was held today, the primary question would be who can best address the border issue. And you can tell it's a major issue when both candidates for the president's office are at the border at the same time. Joe Biden hasn't been to the border, I think, ever. Maybe he's been there. I don't know. But he definitely hasn't been since his presidency. And he put Kamala Harris in charge of this issue. And she sat around and twiddled her thumbs for 3 years. So now he goes down, and this is a major issue I'm going to address as president. The only reason, and I want to say this to the listeners of 710 KNUS, the only reason that the Democrats are actually having to deal with the border right now, one, is the stupidity of their policies have caught up to them. And two, we have been putting pressure on them. God-loving Americans have been putting pressure on them to deal with it, and they have to deal with it. So thank you to all of you listening for making this a priority. All right, so let's get into some clips here. Joe Biden at the border yesterday. This is why it's so important.
Folks, it's real simple. It's time to act. It's long past time to act. I just received a briefing from the Border Patrol at the border, as well as Immigration and Enforcement, asylum officers, and they're all doing incredible work under really tough conditions. Really tough conditions. They told me what you already know and we already know. They desperately need more resources. Say it again, they desperately need more resources. They need more agents, more officers, more judges, more equipment in order to secure our border. Folks, it's time for us to move on this.
It's time to act, Americans! I is Joe Biden. are going to address this emergency. Never mind, I created this emergency, but now it's time to act. This is where I get really frustrated with politicians because they're oftentimes the arsonists and the firemen at the same time.
Absolutely.
They lit the fire, and now they show up to tell you how great it is that they're going to put it out. Please find better people to run this country. I want to go to Mayorkas bragging about how they're going to essentially close down everything that Donald Trump did to try to address this.
And I'd like to understand from you what Trump-era immigration policies have been banned, ended, reversed, and if any investigations are underway by you.
So we have rescinded so many Trump immigration policies, it would take so much time to list them.
Woo-hoo! Here we go. Mayorkas gets into power, and he's knocking down all these Trump immigration rules. On the first day, Joe Biden, day one, I'm going to knock all these down. And then, ladies and gentlemen,
Folks, it's real simple.
It's time to act.
It's time to act. It's long past time to act.
We got to do stuff. Did I cause this problem? Yes, I did, but I'm here to solve it because I'm a great president. By the way, I would solve this whole problem as Joe Biden, President of the United States, if it weren't for those pesky partisan politics Republicans.
I want the people to understand clearly what happened here. This bill was in the United States Senate, was on its way to being passed. Then it was derailed by rank-and-file politics, partisan politics. The U.S. Senate needs to reconsider this bill, and those senators who oppose it need to set politics aside and pass it on the merits, not on whether it's going to benefit one party or benefit the other party.
Yes, I had power when I first got in here. I held the House and the Senate and the presidency, and I took down all of President Trump's immigration rules the day one. But it's the pesky Republicans now in an election year that don't agree with my plan and ergo are torpedoing it, and that's why we have all those problems. That is Joe Biden's message yesterday at the border. By the way, he never even really went to the border. He went to a town nearby that was a Democrat stronghold. But believe me, Joe Biden's there to work for the American people.
Let's remember who we work for God's sake. We work for the American people.
Come on, man. This is about the American people. So that was Joe Biden's argument yesterday. I think it fell flat. I would like to hear from you. 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971. We'll get to Trump in a second. We'll get to Mayorkas. Or text us on the 710KNUS app. But that was Joe Biden's argument.
Does Biden have a point that if it is such an emergency, even though he came to the table way later than he should, if the people that he is working with say no, sir, it is not it is so much of an emergency that we don't have to deal with it until after the election, do the Republicans undercut their own argument that it is an emergency?
Good question. 303-696-1971. Text us on the 710KNUS app. Hey, eliminate the stress and uncertainty of selling your home while still getting top dollar with Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team with Keller Williams Sell. Their Sell with Certainty program guarantees your home will sell without even having to list it, and at the same time getting you top dollar. Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team guarantee the sale, ensuring a seamless process and eliminating the stress while getting you the best price. Get paid twice with their Sell with Certainty program. Give Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team a call today, 833-301-SOLD. Your home is a significant asset, and choosing the right team to help you sell it can be the difference in thousands of dollars in your pocket. I highly recommend Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team, the realtors I trust. Empower Home team provides exceptional service, invaluable advice, and employs unique systems to maximize the money you can get for your home. Getting an offer above your home's asking price is great, but you're leaving money on the table by not working with Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team. Gay and her experts get the clients an average of $30,000 more. Could you use an extra $30,000? That's precisely why you need Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team. Their exclusive database is filled with pre-screened buyers ready to make a purchase. Take the stress and hassle out of selling your home while getting the best price. Here's an unbeatable offer. Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team will sell your house for 100% of the asking price, or Gay will pay you the difference. It's an offer you simply cannot refuse. Get 100% of your asking price guaranteed with Gay Ribble and the Empower Home Team. Reach out to my friends and realtors, Gay Ribble and Empower Home Team, today. Call 833-301-SOLD, 833-301-SOLD, or go to gayhasthebuyers.com, GAYE hasthebuyers.com. We'll get to your text messages and phone calls. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
All right, we're covering the rumble at the border yesterday with Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Here's Biden's message to Trump.
I understand my predecessor's an eagle pass today. So here's what I would say to Mr. Trump. Instead of playing politics with this issue, instead of telling members of Congress to block this legislation, join me, or I'll join you in telling the Congress to pass this bipartisan border security bill. We can do it together. You know and I know. It's the toughest, most efficient, most effective border security bill this country has ever seen. So instead of playing politics with the issue, why don't we just get together and get it done? Let's remember who the heck we work for. We work for the American people, not the Democratic Party, the Republican Party. We work for the American people. And let's remember who we are. We're the United States of America. No, I mean this. Think about this. There's nothing beyond our capacity. Nothing when we work together. And if all things we should be working together on is this, we have the formula to get it done. God bless you all, and may God protect our Border Patrol, and God protect our troops.
He comes across to me, Bill, as a guy hat in hand. When I listen to that, he's kind of like, because look, this guy was spiking the football the first day in office about how he was going to unravel all of Trump's stay in Mexico policy, those types of things. And here this guy comes down. Obviously, he doesn't want to be there. There's no way Joe Biden wants to be at the border in an election year trying to deal with this. They thought that Donald Trump was some, xenophobic, racist, horrible guy by implementing all of these border policies. And then, here he is essentially going to have to re-implement many of them in order to address this issue.
Possibly re-implement them, not necessarily. And the numbers behind the border between Biden and Trump are deceptive. And what Trump tells you about the border is not necessarily accurate. You look at the idea of he didn't build a wall. He didn't deport. He didn't have massive deportations. He had promised that of illegals that were in the country, and he's promising that again. We have no indication that he has any way, mechanism, or thought process to execute that. And the odd thing is, of people that have who have been contacted illegally and crossed the country illegally, the percentage of the population that the Border Patrol has the impact with on that era, not a port of entry, but the illegal crossings, the percentage of that population that is then deported back is higher under Biden than it is under Trump. As far as a percentage, only about 5 or 6%. But the idea that Biden just threw open the board and said, "Come on in, everybody, water's fine, come on," is not belayed by the numbers and the information. That's not necessarily what happened. And the execution that Trump says that he closed down the border and nobody was doing this, there weren't as many people coming. But the idea that functionally, based on a percentage of the population, that he was better on apprehending the criminals than deporting them is not what the facts and figures say. And that should be in this conversation.
Do you think we've reached a tipping point? Because you and I talked about this yesterday. Yeah. This has been an issue since I remember being in college.
Yeah.
And California trying to deal with this. I remember listening to conservative talk then. Illegal immigration is going to be a problem. And back then you had hordes of folks hanging out at Home Depot parking lots that were grabbing jobs.
We don't care.
Do you think at this point, though, there's enough political will to deport people?
No.
To do mass deportations?
No, because at the core, neither party, according to my feelings, functionally care about that mechanism. They both need this as a political cudgel. Neither one of them at their core wants to solve this issue. They want it to continue, but for different reasons. I'm going to talk to the phones.
Yeah, phones are starting to light up. Give us a call on this, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971. We still have to get to Trump's statements down there and Mayorkas. I mean, bragging initially on, we played that, bragging about all the things he was going to shut down that Donald Trump had implemented with regards to illegal immigration and how proud he was for that. And then these guys hat in hand sitting down there at the Capitol or at the border going, gosh, we really, we're really concerned about illegal immigration coming over and all the drugs and all the sex trafficking and all that stuff. I mean, come on.
Biden didn't sound sincere. He didn't because he's been forced to pay attention to this, and he doesn't want to. He looks like that kid that is forced to give the book report that he didn't want to give in class. That's what he looked like yesterday.
And that's because of you great listeners at 710 KNUS making this a priority and not giving up on this when they put out a big banner welcoming everybody to Denver. We knew it was going to be a problem. You were right. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS. My wife's waiting for that robot replacement thing, though, 'cause she's tired of me going, "Oh, my back hurts, honey. I can't help you in the basement." She's tired of that. So tired.
Oh, it's 8 a.m. and it is. We are off the rails already at the Jeff and Bill Show. Good morning. It's Friday, March 1st. You made it to the end of the week. Congratulations. And we've been covering everything from this border issue to Kristi Burton Brown joined us in the 7 o'clock hour to discuss kind of the dumbest bills that have already been introduced down at the state capitol. And it was a doozy. So if you missed that, go to 710knus.com. You can listen to the podcast there. Good morning, Blake Olson with the news.
Hey, good morning. You realize that we've been doing this for a month now. This is our anniversary, I think.
So what did you get us?
4 weeks. What's that?
What'd you get us as a gift?
Oh, well, it's in the mail.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
So
How
ours.
how long did you think we were going to make it,
Don't open
Blake?
yours, Bill. How long?
Thank you.
At least a month and a half.
Oh, good.
2 weeks left.
That's fantastic.
No,
Thank you, sir, for the confidence.
I have faith in you guys, man. It's going to be the longest running show ever in the history of radio.
Well, and Blake, if it's white powder that you sent us, if it's if you're Donald Trump Jr., don't open it. If it's Hunter, go to town and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Yes.
Exactly. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. 39 and mostly cloudy in Denver, expecting highs in the low 60s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, a new bill passed out of a Colorado committee Thursday. Colorado girls a step closer to getting free period products. Schools will have to stock feminine products by 2028. Jenny Wilford, a co-sponsor of the bill.
We already provide toilet paper for students, so why else wouldn't we provide menstruation products?
Brianna Titone says the products are vital, especially for those who can't afford them. Now, there are a lot of bills being discussed and passed. Kristi Burton Brown from Advance Colorado just joined Jeff and Bill to talk about those ridiculous bills, including helping criminals. The sponsor of this one wants to give criminals $3,000 after they leave jail.
Taxpayers shouldn't be on the hook for not only funding the entire stay in jail and all the societal costs of crime, but now also let's give $3,000 to criminals. There are nonprofits out there who want to help people who get out of jail integrate back into society.
And
Can we get the inmates to fund their own toilet paper? Going back to that comment about how we shouldn't be funding. We don't fund toilet paper for kids. Why not menstrual products?
I think that's a great idea.
With Kristi Burton Brown saying that they should pay their way through jail, including their toilet paper.
I'm supporting you. I'm going to help you push it. Let's go. Oh, my God. It's just amazing. Colorado making an education milestone to fully fund schools for the first time since 2009. Governor Polis says it'll provide teachers with the resources they need.
A sustainable way for the state to continue this commitment for years to come.
And teachers were whooping and hollering at a Taylor Swift-themed rally on Thursday at the Capitol. President Biden inviting former President Trump to support the border bill proposed last month. He's only had 3 years to get something done, and now all of a sudden Biden is ready to go. Both stumped in South Texas on the border on Thursday.
I call him Crooked Joe because he's crooked. He's a terrible president, the worst president our country's ever had. And probably the most incompetent president we've ever had. But it's allowing thousands and thousands of people to come in from China, Iran, Yemen, the Congo, Syria.
I just want the American people to know what we're trying to get done. How many more of these big things are we talking about?
The non-intrusive inspection technology under the legislation.
He forgot again. There are a lot of people saying across this morning, again, across the nation, that Democrats won't be going with Biden in a few months. We shall see about that.
Well, anyway.
Right. It's just amazing. I can't see it. I can't. All right. Trump is in a Florida courtroom today as a part of his classified documents case. The judge will consider when the case should go to trial as they continue to attack him. The largest wildfire in Texas history has now killed 2 people as it has spread to Oklahoma. The Smokehouse Creek fire has scorched more than 1 million acres. 38 in Glendale, 35 in Arvada, 39 in Denver. Nuggets over the Heat, 103-97. Avs shut out the Blackhawks. Jeff and Bill, the month anniversary continues. Friday morning, Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Say goodbye to clutter and hello to convenience when you experience organization transformation in your home. Roll 'em Out Shelves, your clutter transformation experts, create affordable Colorado-crafted organized storage solutions. These custom options will maximize and organize your kitchen and bath storage as Roll 'em Out Shelves carefully designs and builds roll-out drawers to fit your space perfectly to clear the clutter. Contact owners Joyce and Brent at Roll 'em Out Shelves to schedule your free in-home estimate today.
Text message here from Joni that I think is right on that menstrual products bill for schools. The girls can afford Starbucks each day or go out to lunch, but not feminine products. This is ridiculous. Whose money will pay for this? Joni, you're going to pay for it. I think they're expecting to spend a few $100,000 on this. I read the bill. What got me on this bill, look, I talked to my wife about this too, and she's like, typically if you don't have that type of product, that feminine menstrual product that you need, the nurse will have it. There'll be a collection that the nurse has. And you typically only make that mistake once of not bringing it, or if it happens for the first time and you're at school, the nurse is there to help you. But this isn't something that the state needs to continually fund. But this is what got me in that bill. They don't refer to women in that bill. They refer to people who menstruate. People who menstruate. And it just, that continued gender ideology stuff. I'm like, my gosh.
But that technically would be correct.
Well, yeah, technically.
They're a person that menstruates, yeah.
Yeah, but you know what they're doing. Brianna Totone's running this bill. You know what they're doing.
Well, I
know.
They're
taking women out of the language. Like, they're literally removing them from the bill. It's like they're removing them from sports, all that stuff. People who
that would be.
menstruate.
But the thing would be is you could have a transgender boy that also would menstruate based on biology. So that's
he would
what
be
it
a
is.
woman. He would be a woman. He's not a transgender boy. He's a woman.
No, he's a transgender boy because, again, sex is biological, gender is a social construct.
We're going to get into the rhinoceros.
Yeah, it is. And that's what it is. And you can have
It is
someone that
not what it
identifies
is.
as a
It
boy.
is a woman.
And there can be someone that identifies as a male and
They don't
menstruates.
identify. They're boys
Yes,
or girls.
they do. Sexually, biologically, yes, not gender. Not gender.
Right.
Gender is a sociological construct. We'll leave that for another day. But gender
Yeah,
is a
we've gotten
sociological
into that
construct.
earlier this week. It is not. All right, let's go to Mayorkas. He gets up there right after Joe Biden. This is Mayorkas. By the way, this was Mayorkas when he first got into office.
And I'd like to understand from you what Trump-era immigration policies have been banned, ended, reversed, and if any investigations are underway by you.
So we have rescinded so many Trump immigration policies, it would take so much time to list them.
So he's very happy about all the rescindment that's taking place, and here he is yesterday.
You heard about the dynamic and challenging phenomenon of irregular migration we face as our hemisphere and the world experience the greatest displacement of people since World War II.
When I first heard that, I went, what? That's how he describes immigration. Listen to this again. It's people that shouldn't be in this country that walked across the border. That's all it is. And this is how he responds. This is what he describes it as.
You heard about the dynamic and challenging phenomenon of irregular migration we face as our hemisphere and the world experience the greatest displacement of people since World War II.
No, what? This is not because of wars. Yeah, you may have corrupt Central American countries that have implemented a lot of leftist ideas. I'm not dismissing that. But this is a phenomenon of displacement the size that this world has not seen since World War II. It's illegal immigration. People see a bunch of free services and great job opportunities in this country, and they walk across the border to get it. It's not that complicated. All right, let's get to Trump's response here. Here's Donald Trump on Joe Biden calling it an invasion, the Joe Biden invasion.
But this is a Joe Biden invasion. This is a Biden invasion over the past 3 years. I call him Crooked Joe because he's crooked. He's a terrible president, the worst president our country's ever had, probably the most incompetent president we've ever had. But it's allowing thousands and thousands of people that come in from China, Iran, Yemen, the Congo, Syria, and a lot of other nations. Many nations are not very friendly to us. He's transported the entire columns of fighting-aged men, and they're all at a certain age, and you look at them and say, they look like warriors to me. Something's going on that's bad. Now the United States is being overrun by the Biden migrant crime. It's a new form of vicious violation to our country. It's migrant crime. We call it Biden migrant crime, but that's a little bit long.
It's like, for me, Bill, that's a breath of fresh air. After listening to Joe Biden dance around and all of a sudden act like he cares about the border, Mayorkas coming up with some weird phenomenon of people displacement, and then he comes in and he goes, it's a Biden migrant crime. And I'm like, it is a Biden migrant crime.
Yeah, except for the fact that they're not all illegal, and that those that are illegal commit crimes at a lesser percentage rate than the general American population. But, other than that,
crime,
totally
any crime.
believable.
That is
Totally
a crime
believable.
that should not have ever happened in America. Here are the list of crimes that Donald Trump gets into.
Yeah.
Last year, almost half of all ICE arrests were criminal aliens charged for more than 33,000 assaults, 3,000 robberies, 6,900 burglaries, 7,500 weapons crimes. This is all migrant crime. 4,300 sex crimes, 1,600 kidnappings, and 1,700 homicides and murders. These are the people that are coming into our country. And they're coming from jails, and they're coming from prisons, and they're coming from mental institutions, and they're coming from insane asylums, and they're terrorists. They're being let into our country. And it's horrible. It's horrible.
Every single one of those crimes. I don't care about the crime rate compared to the traditional American. None of those should have happened in America.
Well, it does matter if it's not a significant number. And the reason being...
4,000 sex crimes?
What are the total number of sex crimes?
I don't care. I don't want 4,000.
Well,
no. Don't put those in some bigger category.
No,
those
it
are
does,
sex crimes that should have never taken place, period.
Well, it depends, again, on the idea. That's, for me, the significant. Is it a significant portion? Is it a significant portion of the number of sex crimes? Because the idea being, if we are worried about the sex crimes, then maybe you prosecute the people doing it and don't focus on the smaller portion of the larger pie and say we're going to fix it by getting rid of these people. That doesn't work that way. You could eliminate all of the illegal immigrants, and you could take them all out based on the assault numbers that he had, and your total assaults in this country dropped by maybe 6%. 6%.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, guess what?
Do it.
Yeah, the
What's
national
stopping us?
national
Why not
hang on.
do that?
National violent crime statistics in 2023 dropped more than 12%. Okay? So the idea being not doing these deportations or anything else, violent crime dropped by 12%. And that nobody's sitting there going, oh my God, this is an amazing drop. This is significant. Yet we're focusing on a 6% drop in assaults. Again, not a significant portion of the group. I'm not against prosecuting them for that. But the idea that if we prosecuted all of them or threw them out of the country, that all of a sudden all the crime goes away is a fallacy.
No one's saying all the crime, but
Mr.
4,000.
Trump says that. He says the Biden migrant crime wave.
Yes.
It is not a crime wave because it is not a significant portion of the crime. That's the problem. His numbers are not a significant portion of the total. If it was a crime wave, the waves increase the water level. This is a migrant crime ripple at the very best. I'm not endorsing the criminals.
No way.
But based on the statistics, that's what it is. And the problem is that what I hear with Trump is I hear demagoguery. I hear an authoritarian wannabe. I hear a guy who is trying to tell you to be afraid and scared, and I'm the only strong man that can fix this. And if you don't, everybody's going to live in this hellscape. That's how he describes it all the time.
We are living in this hellscape. We are living in it now.
Really? You think this
Yes.
is the hellscape? Really?
Denver is not doing well, Bill.
Not doing well based on what measures? What are you talking about? So
crime, homelessness, drug overdoses, illegal immigration, cost to the city. We are not flourishing as a city. We are already in a hellscape. Thank God for that breath of fresh air named Donald Trump at the border.
The Denver is not a hellscape. Neither is Colorado. And the illegals are not a significant portion of that crime. I understand being angry about it, but sitting here, and this is the problem I have, when Trump sits there and says, it's those people's fault, he's wrong. He's also a demagogue that is beginning to other a group of people. That is wrong. Statistically, he's not correct, and he's telling you that your problems are due to another set of population. We've gone through that before. We've seen over and over again what happens when governments decide that a certain segment of the population is the responsible ones for the crime, not based on the criminal behavior, based on existing.
The entire fact they're in this country is a crime, and they shouldn't be here. And if that's 4,000 sexual assaults, that's 4,000 sexual assaults too much, and it is absolutely Joe Biden's fault.
So would you then say that all of the crime the illegals committed under Trump's administration is also Trump's fault?
It is very fair critique to make that.
No,
and
yes
Ann
or no?
Coulter has made that.
No,
yes,
I asked
it
you.
is.
It is.
And he should have done more on the border.
Okay, so the idea that any crime that is committed by an illegal is then the responsibility of the president, it then hurts your argument saying
it doesn't.
It does hurt your argument because neither president has fixed it. Both presidents have had the crime underneath it, and there's not a significant... And the place in which the violent crime has dropped is under Biden. That's an issue. If you're really worried about the idea of this violent crime happening in this hellscape, we are seeing a crime trend downwards under Biden. It hurts your argument to say that we are in this growing hellscape.
I don't believe that it's going down under Biden. I just think that the city of Denver and Colorado don't have the ability to even work with ICE, so you don't even know.
The law enforcement people that keep the numbers tell you that.
Yeah,
you can sit there and go,
when you don't allow
false news, that's fine. But
when you don't
do that
allow
yourself.
them to report and work with ICE, you sabotage your own numbers.
That has nothing to do with violent crime numbers.
Yes, it does.
No. Whether or not a police officer can communicate with ICE does not matter at all.
Yes.
Whether or not it is counted in the violent crime category.
If
whether
it's
or not,
committed by illegal immigrants, yes.
No, but
you're
again,
not even looking.
Yes, you are, because the police officer would arrest the illegal immigrant, and charge them with the crime. Then he can't talk to ICE. That is a problem, yes. But the fact they can't talk to ICE doesn't mean the crimes are just washed away. The officer doesn't come up and go, man, he committed a murder.
But how do you know? How do you know if someone was illegal when they did the crime?
But the issue is this: you come in, and even if the person's illegal, you're illegal, but I can't talk to ICE, so I guess you get to go free. That's what you're saying.
No,
that's not.
I'm
okay.
saying they don't know if it's tied to illegal immigrants or not. They don't know in the reporting numbers if the violent crime. So let's look at. You're looking at the whole nation.
Yes, they do.
No, you're not.
Okay,
you're looking at the whole nation. You're like, violent crime has dropped down. Therefore, it can't be tied to illegal immigrants. And I'm saying they're not even asking those questions.
I'm not saying it's
you
not
could have
tied.
had a massive increase in
sec.
violent crime attached to illegal immigrants, but because you're not allowing local law enforcement to work with ICE, nobody even knows if they're illegal immigrants or not.
Okay, so Trump made up his numbers, is what you're saying, because nobody knows. So Trump lied to us in that thing. He couldn't possibly know the number of crimes that were committed by illegals. No,
I think you know some of them. But the state of Colorado's not reporting those numbers.
You just a moment ago said because we can't talk to ICE, we can't count the number of crimes that the illegals can commit.
We don't know all of them.
So Donald Trump has no idea what he's talking about.
I bet those numbers are low.
Donald Trump, he could
not that he doesn't know what he's talking about.
He has
but
no
I
idea
think
what he's talking about.
I never said that.
According to you, yes, you did. Yes.
I think they're low.
He could be wildly overestimating them because we don't know according to you. If I go on your premise that we can't possibly know the number of crimes, then we don't know and he's making up his numbers. See how this hurts your argument?
You're jumping to extremes here.
No,
All
that's
right.
what you said.
We've got the phone lines are jam-packed. All right, let's go to Frank in Evergreen. Line 1, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Frank.
Good job, Billy. You're playing your Trump hater role very well. I greatly appreciate it. So anybody who's not rolling on the floor laughing out loud at Biden's comments yesterday simply has not been alive the last 3.5 years. It's so absurd that anybody should be laughing, even zombie Democrat voters and Trump haters. Honestly, it's just absurd. That what he said yesterday, let's all work together. And, and the thing is, Billy, a week or two ago, you mentioned that we need to collaborate more. Give me a break. Collaborate with what? People who want to crush babies' heads? Collaborate with people who want to bring in 10,000 Democrat voters a day?
So what's your
People who
solution,
wanna-
Frank? Frank, what's your solution? You can't possibly
My
work with the
solution
Democrats.
is-
What do you do?
Well, can work with them on some things.
No. You
And
said you
clearly
couldn't.
they are.
No, Frank, you said a second ago. You said you can't work with them on anything. So what do you do?
Well, clearly, Billy, open your eyes and look around you. We're 30-some trillion dollars in debt. We got 10,000 people a day crossing our border. We don't even know who they are. And when you say cite your crime statistics, how many police officers have we defunded this year who aren't even able to pick people up?
That's a lot of
So-
words you've used, Frank, to say, I'm avoiding your question, Bill. I don't want to answer it. I will ask again.
So how do we work together?
What is your solution? No, you said we
Okay.
can't work together because you're not going to work with the Democrats and the baby crushing skulls and all the other stuff that you say normally.
Well-
So how do you possibly functionally come to a solution if you're not going to work with the other party?
Okay. So right now we're at I'll say point in time, but you probably know as well as I do, there is no such thing as a point in time. At this time, we're in a bad state as a nation. What we need to get back to is getting rid of the crazies on both sides. But to get rid of the crazies on the Republican side and not get rid of the crazies on the Democrat side it's gonna make things just worse. So when the crazies on both sides are gone, maybe someday we'll get together and work and be able to fix our roads again. Maybe someday we'll be able to make our society safe again so we can walk in the streets. You know, this whole thing is absurd that it's one side or the other. Matter of fact, the other thing that frequently comes up on, from you, Billy, is you make it a Trump versus Biden thing. It's not Trump versus Biden. It's the Communist Party of America versus democracy.
Frank,
Republicans.
I appreciate the call. Thanks so much. Frank from Evergreen, we got full lines, so we're going to get through these. I appreciate it, Frank.
I appreciate that too. But again, when Frank's like, well, it's the Communist Party against the democracy, then you don't work with the communists. Again, he functionally, this is the problem I have, is functionally he writes off the Democrats and said it's all their fault and we can't work with them, and then complains about the fact that we can't find solutions. When you refuse to talk to the other side, you're never going to come to a solution. Even if you don't like them, even if you think they're crushing baby heads, it doesn't matter at that point because you become intractable. It doesn't matter. It's the same thing as negotiating through a difficult marriage or a breakup. You become intractable, nothing's going to go forward. So you can scream and yell at the clouds all you want, Frank, but based on your premise, nothing's going to get fixed and you're happy with it.
And I think
Fine.
there's different times, and this could get into your argument about really how big of an emergency is the border.
Yeah.
But we're going into an election year, so the point right now between now and November is to win and to get as many of your guys into office so you have as much power as possible come January to run the policies you want. And then negotiation happens and all that stuff. But right now it is Trump versus Biden. I mean, it just is. You saw that yesterday. Two different worldviews at the border. What just drives me crazy, though, is the idea that Biden all of a sudden cares about the border. Come on.
Oh, yeah, that
Let's
is ridiculous.
go to Mark.
That is ridiculous.
Denver, you're on News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Mark.
Morning.
Hi. I think Billy's gone off the rails. This crime dropping.
Cool.
I've had my pickup stolen twice, and the Aurora police said we're not even looking at property crimes because we're dealing with rapes and murders. And in the shadow of your studio there, at the corner of Quincy and Parker, there's a guy selling construction tools on the sidewalk, right at the corner. I mean, it's such a quantity of tools there. Where the heck did he get those?
Yeah, I can see your point, Mark, but there is this bromide. I get that, Mark, but there's this bromide about the idea, and Peter Boyles used to lean into it, the idea that, well, obviously all Native Americans walk in a straight line because the ones that I did walked in a straight line. Your anecdotal experience may or may not be necessarily descriptive of the larger population. And I do agree that we have problems with crime in Aurora and around Denver. But what I'm talking about is nationally, the national statistics. When Donald Trump talks about a Biden migrant crime wave, when the violent crimes in America are going down, that makes his premise very, very difficult to swallow. If under Trump we had seen violent crimes go down and President Biden as candidate Biden says, all this crime is increasing under Trump, all these violent, whatever the heck it is, and the numbers go down, we again would be throwing rocks at Biden going, wait a minute. It's not it's not it's not revealed by the numbers. We don't have statistics to back that up. So I understand that we do have problems here. Absolutely.
I've got to go to former Sheriff Villanueva from Los Angeles County that says that what they did is just stop counting. That's his statement. They simply stopped counting, and George Gascon out there won't prosecute. And I think it's very similar here in Denver. I mean, Beth McCann and George Gascon could be brothers. They're so similar.
Mark, I appreciate the call. Mark from Denver. Mark's line is going to be open 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710KNUS app. Man, it is about 50-50, Bill. It goes back and forth. People agree with you. People agree with me.
Text messages are great. Give us a call. I'd love to have the conversation because it's and I see what Mark's talking about not counting, but I would have to see again that is on a larger scale. Even if the one county in Los Angeles and they stopped counting there, that doesn't mean they didn't stop counting elsewhere. And the numbers normally are not just prosecutions; they're arrests that are and incidents.
I think you're reverse extrapolating. So rather than taking a small group and saying, well, we have this really big problem, you're taking a big problem or a drop in the big problem and applying it to a small group. So you're like, we've had a nationwide drop in violent crime, ergo in your debate, guys, so you know what I'm doing right here. Ergo, the smaller group isn't as guilty as much crime.
Well, yes and no on that. The issue for me is significance. That's where I'm arguing on this, is the idea that the way that Trump portrays this is that the illegal immigrants are creating an outsized percentage of our crime. And that is not what the numbers show. And that's all I'm saying is that I'm not advocating in favor of the illegal immigrant crimes. I'm just saying that the entire premise that Trump comes to us with, saying that we have this giant illegal immigrant crime wave, isn't shown on the numbers. That Americans harm Americans much more often
and I'm saying
than an illegal
any
does.
of these should have never happened. All right, give us a call, 303-696-1971. Men, you've heard a lot about how treating low testosterone can improve your sleep, your workouts, your energy levels, and more. But I want to talk to you about your love drive, because low testosterone can have a significant impact on your desire for intimacy. And if you're in a relationship or wanting to be in a relationship, a low love drive can really be a problem. There is good news. Go to RockyMountainMen'sClinic.com and take the low T quiz on their website. It's a simple 10-question quiz with yes or no answers. It takes just 2 minutes. Then schedule a consult with Rocky Mountain Men's Clinic. A Colorado licensed medical provider will review your results with you and discuss your options. I visited their office. These are good guys to work with. Cost of the appointment was only $99, which includes medical consult, T, and PSA test. If you sign up for testosterone treatment the day of your appointment, your visit is free. Rocky Mountain Men's Clinic has served the Front Range of Colorado for nearly a decade and successfully treated tens of thousands of men. When I was there, I saw construction guys going in. I saw guys in suits going in. It's really serving all the guys here in the Front Range region. Call them today at 720-440-7900. That's 720-440-7900, or visit RockyMountainMen'sClinic.com. That's RockyMountainMen'sClinic.com. We'll get your calls and text. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour in London, I'm Julia Chapman, and here are the top stories we're following. Japan's Prime Minister is expected to visit a new Toyota electric battery plant in North Carolina when he visits the U.S. next month. Reports suggest the trip is intended to showcase Japanese investment in light of recent criticisms by former President Donald Trump about America's trade deficit with Japan. Chris Gilbert reports from Tokyo.
Japan is looking to boost its EV battery production and is benefiting from US tax credits aimed at increasing investment, such as this plant in North Carolina. And Prime Minister Kishida reportedly wants to go there and demonstrate the jobs that are being created from Japanese investment. It'll be part of a 6-day visit beginning on April 9th, during which he will also meet with President Biden in Washington. It comes as former President Donald Trump criticizes the U.S. trade relationship with Japan, raising questions about its future should he become president again.
The government will not go into a partial shutdown this weekend after a short-term funding bill was approved by the Senate last night. It funds some federal agencies until March 8th and others until March 22nd. And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm Julia Chapman in London on Salem News Channel.
All right, we've got full lines and a lot of text messages coming in. Jeff is no match for you, Billy. Fun to listen to him try. I am no match against his
that one. I enjoy it.
Leftism.
Yeah, Jeff makes a really good point.
His open borderism. No, we're just having fun.
It is.
But this is what we hope to achieve, to bring you into the conversation, to have this back and forth, which you're just not going to get on any other radio station in Denver. You've got monologues, you've got just straight news, you've got some music out there, but hey, you want to be a part of the conversation, what's happening in this country, we're going to put your voice on radio here. So before we get to the calls, Ron, you're going to be up. We got Ron, Rob, and Jim coming up here in just a second. Let's check in on Blake.
Hey,
what are you working
what's up,
on,
Jeff?
Mr. Blake?
Well, we're looking at Colorado making a little history in education. They'll fully fund schools for the first time since 2009. We'll hear from the governor on that. And remember Judge Engeron in New York, that guy going after Trump? You remember him in New York?
He was working out and creeping the girls with the workouts.
Yes. We'll talk a little bit about that at the top of the hour. That and much more coming up.
Awesome.
Hey, thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, I was watching James O'Keefe's videos. Did you see that?
No.
So James O'Keefe he used to be Project Veritas, and then the whole thing fell apart.
But for the lying and the crimes and stuff, just a little bit of an issue.
So he goes and approaches Aragon in the
from Lord of the Rings.
What is the judge's name?
No. Oh, Edragan. Oh, sorry. I thought we were talking about.
Yeah, I got that
Return
wrong.
of the King.
Sorry.
I thought I was in Twin Towers, Return of the King. Sorry.
The Trump judge, the New York Trump judge.
Yeah.
And he confronts him in a gym, but he kind of does. He doesn't really dress up, but he's just like, "Hey, great job, man." Great job. He's trying to get him to be like, I really want to get Trump. And he kind of feeds him these lines of, you really went after him. That's great. Way to go after MAGA and stuff. And he never really bites, but he doesn't disavow it. He's like, I get a lot of hate, but I'm really glad with what I did. And then the gym calls James O'Keefe yesterday and is like, you're fully banned from it. And James was like, well, what about the judge creeping on the girls? Because one of the women in the video says that he's a little bit creepy and kind of stares at the girls and all that. And anyways, that's all online if you want to watch that. But we'll see what Blake has for news at the top of the hour. Let's go to Ron Stapleton. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Ron.
Hi, guys. Hi, Billy.
Hello.
How you doing,
What's
buddy?
up? Hey, good, man. What's on your mind?
Well, I want to give a stat for you. You're talking about the illegals not being an outsized proportion of the crime given their size of population. How about this stat? If you look up on the internet what the prison population is of illegals, it's about 25%, give or take a few percentage. And that's an outsized portion of their population base.
What is the percentage of the population for the black community based on the population base?
That we're not talking about the black community. We're talking about illegals now, right?
No, we are though, Ron, because your point is going to be that obviously if they're an outsized portion of those that are incarcerated, they're obviously an outsized danger. But we see that inside of the black community that they are more often incarcerated for the same crimes than white people. And again, I'm not taking a position on that, but I'm just telling you what the statistics are. We don't then assume that the black population is more violent or more of a danger than the white population just based on the percentage of crimes that are adjudicated and put into prison. Just because we have that percentage of that population in there doesn't mean they're more violent. In fact, based on the numbers, since you're talking about numbers, Americans about every 1,400 per 100,000 are incarcerated. For those that are illegal immigrants, it's about 877 per 100,000. So it's roughly a little, it's 60% more or less. So the idea, it's different. So
I think we're down a rabbit trail on this stuff, and Ron, I'll give you a chance to respond to this. There's a text message here that illegal immigration is a crime. 10 million crimes by illegal people that shouldn't be here. And every single one of those ones that are, you look at the poor UGA student, the nursing student there. I'm like, I don't care if they're an outsized proportion. Any of those shouldn't have taken place in this country, period.
Yeah, but be careful.
It just doesn't matter to me
be careful.
That they're the proportions of the general public.
Be careful before you come to the argument of, if we can just save one life, it's worth it. Be careful. You don't really want to make that argument.
No,
because
I'm not
it is
saying
untenable.
that.
That is kind of what you're saying.
You seem to be dismissing illegal immigration because their crimes are not as much as other people's crimes. And I'm just like, it doesn't matter.
No, not in the
I'm
least.
not saying everyone should be stopped, but My goodness, 4,000 sexual assaults? Those are 4,000 sexual assaults that shouldn't have never happened in this country in the first place.
My point.
Period.
My
I don't
point
care if
comes
it's
from
Biden
Trump.
or Trump or whoever's in charge. They shouldn't have taken place. You want to go to Ron again? Ron, do you want to
Ron.
respond to that?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. 2 quick points. First of all, I agree that the outsized portion of the crimes are committed by a smaller percentage in the black community, but that's not the subject of the discussion here. But 2 quick points. Number one, what Jeff said, a lot of the municipalities you can't even ask the criminal if he's an illegal alien or not, whereas in Texas you can. If you look up on the internet the crime stats from illegal aliens in Texas the last 3-4 years, you'll see those numbers. And furthermore, Reagan used to say that if your neighbor's doing bad, it's a recession. If you're doing bad, it's a depression. But we're throwing around numbers here, but you forget every one of those illegal alien crime statistics is somebody's loved one.
Oh yeah, you're absolutely right.
So,
Ron. I totally agree. I'm not discounting the crime. I am. The idea is I want the crime to be prosecuted. I want them, if they are illegal, to get out of the country. But here's the other part: is you talked about you can't even ask the illegals if they're here legally or not. Just functionally, if you're here illegally, and the police officer comes to you and says, "Sir, are you an illegal alien because I caught you shoplifting, I caught you speeding, I caught you doing whatever it is," are you going to go, "Oh yes, sir, I am illegal"? Are you going to tell him? Is that what you do? Again, since you already crossed the border and got into the country illegally, is that volunteer information you're going to give a law enforcement officer?
If you were bold enough to commit a crime by walking over the border illegally, you're going to commit another crime by lying about it. So, you know, what's the...
No, but your point was that they're not telling the officers whether or not they're illegal, and I'm saying they're not going to anyway.
My point was the officers can't even ask due to the sanctuary city laws.
Yeah, but it
Even
wouldn't
Denver,
matter.
You can't even ask.
I know, but it wouldn't matter because they wouldn't tell you anyway. And the way you find that out is based on their documentation. And then I agree, we have to be better on finding the false documentation and also holding employers responsible for this as well, because they hire the illegals. There should be a punishment, because if the employer gets punished for hiring the person that is not here legally, they will do a better due diligence of making sure to hire the right person. I think we could come to an agreement on this, actually.
Yeah, Ron, thanks so much for the call. Ron from Stapleton. Ron's line's going to be open 303-696-1971. Let's go to Rob in Littleton. Rob, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Rob.
Morning.
Hey, good morning, fellas. Y'all got to quit talking about stuff I care about, man. This is just ridiculous. Like, every day I tune in, and there's a subject that I actually care about that you guys are talking about.
You're
welcome.
Killing
me, man.
We love that. Thanks, man.
All right, quickly. There is a large dichotomy, and I haven't heard anybody, address this in any way, between what the statistics tell us and what our lying eyes tell us. And granted, what our lying eyes tell us is often subject to our feels on the situation, whatever that situation might be. But when the government says violent crime has dropped, or any crime has dropped, or illegal immigration has dropped, or the border is secure, whatever, pick a subject, and then we look around and it seems to us that there is more of X, whatever X might be, than there was last week, last year, 10 years ago. One, it creates a distrust. Now, granted, again, it's based on feels. That's subjective. But it creates a distrust between the general public and the government statistics that are being put out. Because when you look around and you hear, local mayors or governors or whatever say, okay, well, homelessness has dropped in our city, and then I turn my head to the left, and there's 26 homeless dudes and 3 of them crapping in a bucket, on 16th and Stout, with a tent community, I kind of go, homelessness dropped, really, Wow,
I mean, there's just a baloney factor, right? So, like, when Joe Biden goes down and is like, I really care about the border. I'm here because this one.
Let's remember who we work for God's sake. We work for the American people.
You're like, you don't want to be there. Come on.
Look, that's politics, man. I chalk that, and just quickly on Joe Biden. Look, Joe Biden's always been kind of an amiable idiot. For really all that bright, and so now you get into the to the cognitive degeneration, and it's just exacerbated that for him.
Yeah.
So I can write that one off pretty easily. But for 3 years and change, the Biden administration said the border is secure. There is no border crisis, and then you got Fox News that shows you a picture of like 4,000 dudes walking across the border. You kind of go, what's really going on here?
Right.
And when you say violent crime has dropped. But then I see a dude like 5 blocks from my house, man, get popped at a construction site. I'm like, violent crime really didn't drop all that much because I'm watching people, literally watching people.
Oh, yeah.
get
Rob,
killed.
now, here, Rob, I'm going to hurt your head just here for a second. I couldn't agree more with you and absolutely everything you said. I think you are absolutely 110 spot on. I think you are. And I think you're absolutely right about the dichotomy between statistics and what we experience in our real lives. And here's where I think the major, I would say, fault in why we are seeing more crime around, why we're seeing the more homelessness, everything else. And I put this at the doorstep of the liberals and the Democrats. It's the soft on sentencing. It's getting the criminals out of prison and jail too quickly. It's trying to come to the youth offenders and saying, well, they shouldn't go through any sort of rehabilitation or prison program. They should have a meeting and we should talk about their feelings. No. And that's where I believe that's where we're failing on this. Regardless if it's of a American citizen or an illegal immigrant doing the crime, our sentencing and how long we keep them behind bars is ridiculously bad at this point, and because the liberals and the Democrats feeling that we need to understand what the criminal is going through. No, we need to understand the victims.
Rob, I appreciate it. Rob from Littleton, thanks so much for the call. Rob's line is going to be open 303-696-1971. We're talking about the rumble at the border between Joe Biden and Donald Trump yesterday. Hey, when it comes to creating the perfect kitchen or bathroom countertop, it's all about understanding the client's needs and personal style. That's why communication is key. Mitch Floria is the master craftsman with the Art of Granite and works with his team of highly skilled craftsmen, each with their own unique expertise to help bring your vision to life. From single residential installations to large-scale projects, Mitch and his team at the Art of Granite will listen to you and get you what you need. Mitch provides granite, marble, quartz, and other materials from his own warehouse in Denver West at wholesale prices with no markup, so you can get the most for your budget. Mention KNUS and receive a bathroom countertop free with the purchase of your fantastic new kitchen countertops, or get a kitchen or bathroom sink free with the purchase of any countertop package. Schedule a consultation with Mitch and visit his beautiful showroom in Denver West, or call Mitch at 303-386-5919. That's 303-386-5919, or you can visit his website at theartofgranite.com to start dreaming about your new countertops. That's theartofgranite.com. Jim, you're up next, then Adam. We'll get to your calls and texts. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
That was a great series of calls coming in.
So much fun.
Let's go to Jim in Denver. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. Like the topic this morning. This topic is one of the primary reasons why I unaffiliated from the Republican Party in the 90s.
Interesting.
And you've got to understand the role of the illegal immigrant in our nation, and the primary role is for agriculture. And anybody that's spent any time in California, I don't know, like Stockton or Watsonville, you'll understand that there is crime that follows along with people that are just here to serve the agriculture industry. California has the most illegal immigrants, just more than Texas, but by far the most. And we don't really care about some of these dominoes that fall because Americans as a whole would still like to throw away a third of the food that we purchase, and that's exactly what we do. And these
Jim,
illegal immigrants
would
are
you be
a subsidy.
Would you be opposed then to providing services, health care, those types of services, education to illegal immigrants?
My God, it's already done to these clinics in California. It's been done en masse. I would say people should go and listen to the Republican debate in 1980 between Ronald Reagan and Herbert Walker Bush and listen to what their discussion was about illegal aliens and an open border. These people were discussing letting them come across the border and return back and forth when they wanted to.
Do you think that happens, though? Do you think that I don't think that they're returning back anymore. I think there's such a social services network and safety net that this country has built that people are coming here because they want access to that and they want access to their jobs. They don't have that in their Central American countries.
I agree, and it's going to be hard to get the American people to overall buy into this because they quite literally want food to be subsidized and to be cheap enough where they can quite literally throw away a third of the food that we purchase. We throw it in the trash.
All right. I appreciate the call, Jim. Thanks so much. Jim's line is open, 303-696-1971.
I liked what he had to say about, and we've talked about the migrant population and...
Yeah, man, 80s, I just think it's different than it is today.
Different in what way, though? Why would it not?
Because of that
work?
social safety net. If the complaint was, we've got a lot of people that want to come up from Mexico to work and then go back, I think that would be a different thing. I think you have a few things going on. One, I think you have a social safety net that the Democrats have built because they want to maybe feel good, care for people. But I also think that they want these people to stay here because they're going to become Democrat voters. I think that's a real critique of what's happening here.
Well,
but two, before I let you go,
I apologize. Yeah,
I think that they're creating these barrios. They're creating neighborhoods that don't necessarily. Oh man, we're already up against the
the end of the.
Where they're.
I want to curse right now.
They're creating, little communities that don't necessarily always embrace American values. They're not. What is it called? Moving into and embracing American values entirely. And so I'm concerned about that. All right, we'll get to this more. 303-6 Jeff and Bill Show. We'll be right back.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Get that little Friday boogie going.
I'm sorry, I missed that. I was starting to play.
These are great openers. Hey, you listen to the Jeff and Bill show. It's 9 o'clock in the Mile High City. Congratulations. It's Friday, March 1st. It's the end of the week and a brand new month. So we are off and running. Has been a fantastic show. 7 o'clock hour. Kristi Burton Brown joined us to discuss all the just stupid bills being introduced down at the state capitol. Everything from registering your pets to forcing you to basically go camping if you're going to visit Colorado and want to go skiing up in the mountains because all the secondary homes have been taxed into oblivion.
Yeah, we're going to be real happy when we see a lot of people camping in and around the mountain towns, huh? Yeah, we're so happy with the homeless camping. We're going to have tourist camping. This is a great idea, guys.
You know,
Thank you, Dems.
there might be a conspiracy there with the tent companies, right?
Maybe. or maybe the idea of the Dems is, ooh, if we bring in the tourists, then nobody knows which ones are tourists and which ones are the homeless. We will provide cover for our homeless.
Cover.
And of course, they stroke their long
Mike
beard while they're doing
plan.
it. Yes, exactly. That's the thing. Disguise them as tourists. In fact, when they arrive here and they're homeless, we will give them T-shirts to make them look like they visited Winter Park. It's an idea. Maybe
It's a
that's
Casa
what they're doing.
Bonita T-shirt,
Exactly, yes.
And then we've gotten into the Trump-Biden border issue. We'll continue that conversation a little bit later in the hour. Brian McGuire is going to join us. He's a friend, former chief of staff for Mitch McConnell. He's going to give us a little insight into Mitch, what it was like to personally work with him, and who he thinks is going to be the next leader of the Republicans in the Senate. You can give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710 KNUS app. Let's get to Blake with the news. Good morning, Blake.
Morning, Jeff and Bill. 40 and mostly cloudy in Denver. Expecting highs in the low 60s today. The 710 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, the Senate approving a short-term funding bill averting a partial government shutdown this morning. President Biden, all of a sudden a patriot now, and asking former President Trump to join him in supporting the border bill proposed last month.
It's time for the speakers and some of my Republican friends in Congress who are blocking this bill to show a little spine. Conservative leaders supported this.
Speaking of spines, some Democrats hoping Biden's spine holds up, some not so much. Now, Trump continues the political hit job tour in court today in Florida, part of the classified documents case. The judge will consider when the case should go to trial.
Well, Judge Engeron, huh? Behind closed doors, you getting your creep on, huh?
Oh, it's all over the internet. Is it going viral? The judge in New York, remember him, Judge Engeron, in Trump's case, evidently not making women feel comfortable while working out at the gym. There are reports and video via James O'Keefe of women giving him the hand and the Heisman stiff arm at the gym as he tries to rap to them and talk to them at the gym. O'Keefe went undercover, and Dems in New York beside themselves this morning. Colorado making a little history in education. The state will fully fund schools for the first time since 2009. President of the Colorado Education Association, Amy Baca-Olert.
We're only going to be at 1989 funding levels, but it's a step forward from the over $10 billion that have been underfunded in our schools since the inception of the budget stabilization factor.
Here's Governor Polis.
A sustainable way for the state to continue this commitment for years to come.
All right, Loveland police have arrested 45-year-old Asa Peck in connection with the murder of 49-year-old Chantel Wilkes. She was found dead in a river near Barnes Park in August of 2022. Developers looking into plans to improve Pena Boulevard. Roughly 130,000 vehicles travel to and from DIA every day. They will take your ideas at flydenver.com. 37 in Parker, 38 in Lakewood, 40 in Denver. Nuggets over the Heat, 103-97. And the Avs shut out the Blackhawks 5-0. Jeff and Bill continue on the Power Hour Friday morning. Have a great weekend. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
All right, so we're talking the rumble at the border, Trump and Biden yesterday. We're going to play a few more clips here. So I want to get into the nature of name calling a little bit that seems to have been brought into our politics. Here's Joe Biden early on by calling those that disagree with climate change Neanderthals.
I've been a helicopter in the west and the southwest and northwest, flown over more land burned to the ground, all the vegetation gone, than the entire state of Maryland in square footage. The idea there's no such thing as climate change, I love that, man. I love some of my Neanderthal friends who still think there's no climate change.
So that was Biden at the border. And then Trump's come up with a new name for the governor of California. Did you hear this, Bill? Newscom.
Yeah.
3 years ago, we had the most secure border in history. Brandon was saying it. The general was saying it. We had the most secure border, and people weren't coming because they knew they weren't going to get in. And we weren't promising free education, free medical, free everything. I mean, all the promises that are made, no wonder they come. I mean, you look at what this governor, Newscom from California, isn't that his name, Newscom? What he's done to California is unbelievable. People are pouring in. They think they're going to get medical aid. And our soldiers, our vets aren't being taken care of. But people that come into our country illegally are.
All right, so lighthearted ribbing by presidential candidates, or are we into a new realm of that's just where American politics is going to be for a while?
It's just what's going to happen. We're just going to call each other names. That's what's happened. And remember Trump does like his nicknames, and that's one of the things that he does, and he tries to jacket everybody with those nicknames
because it throws you off. It's a brilliant tactic as a candidate.
Yeah.
Because if you're going up to debate, let's go back to 2016, for instance. Marco Rubio does his debate prep. Okay, this is where I'm going to be on this issue.
Yeah.
This issue, I'm going to attack this guy on this. And then, okay. And then Trump gets up there and calls him Little Hands Marco. That was not something I guarantee you Marco Rubio did debate prep for.
Yeah. The issue is, what I'm so surprised at is that can shake someone. The idea that someone could turn and call you a name during it, like, really? I mean, I hate to say it, but this thing here that I'm holding in my hand, the receiver, I have been called all sorts of things by people on this phone, all sorts of things, and insults my heritage, my intelligence, my family, my genealogy. All sorts of things, suggesting I do things to myself that, unless I did a lot of yoga, would be biologically impossible. Just not. And so the idea is that shakes you. I mean,
it's
for me,
fascinating.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
For me, as soon as you call me a name, as soon as I get you to attack me personally, I am going to spike the football in my head because I know I've got you. Yeah. I know that you can't deal with the issues that are in front of you, and you're going to call me names. And if I was on stage with Trump and he sits there and goes, and he calls me, Little Billy or Little Hand, whatever it is. I turn over there and go, okay, Captain Comb Over, we'll talk about this. I go, you're worried about my little hands, and I said, I can use my little hands to come over there and help you comb that hair over the top, as you're covering that giant bald spot. I mean, we can go at it. If you want to open that gup, get a helmet.
You can. It is funny because this gets kind of into the traditional nature of statesmanship.
Yeah.
Where, we're going to argue ideas, and I represent, I'm a senator, I'm a congressman, I'm going to engage. I have this level of decorum and respect and all that stuff. And Trump just blew right through it. And part of the argument you can make about Biden is that he's so dopey, he couldn't actually respond, so it just went right through him, right? So Donald Trump tries to take the same tact with Biden in 2020. It just doesn't work because he's so old and out to lunch. It just went right by him. Text messages here. Name calling is like you're in second grade. Come on, this is ridiculous. Do you think that's true on both sides, or is it an effective tactic to try to win? Is David ready? Should we go to David, line 1? Yeah, let's go to David. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning.
Good morning. I thought, tell Billy that President Biden reminds me of a comic character called Mr. Magoo. Doesn't know where he's going.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, that is, given the fact that he stumbles around and he can't find his direction, and I can even see you making the point based on, like when he gets behind a car and such, that he doesn't know what direction he's going and he just kind of bumbles around. That's exactly, I can see that. That is a very appropriate way to describe President Biden. I couldn't agree with you more.
I just thought I'd mention that because I every time I watch him, I say, "There's Mr. Magoo." You know,
I think you're right.
We ought to call him President Magoo.
That is a great idea. That is a wonderful one. We may take that up. Thank you.
I appreciate it, David. Thanks so much for the call. David's line is open, 303-696-1971.
The little shuffle and the squinty eyes. I mean, because I can see where David's going. I think President Biden right now looks like Jeff Dunham's dummy Walter. But Walter's infinitely more intelligent and with it. But he reminds me because every time it's like, the Magoo thing is good.
I've learned Biden's shtick, and it came in his message to Trump, is that, and maybe this is the role of the president.
Yeah.
But yesterday when he goes, "We're America, come on, we can do anything." Here's the clip.
I understand my predecessor's an eagle pass today. So here's what I would say to Mr. Trump. Instead of playing politics with this issue, instead of telling members of Congress to block this legislation, join me, or I'll join you in telling the Congress to pass this bipartisan border security
Here he comes.
bill.
This is when
we
he gets...
can do it together.
Come on,
You
America.
know and I know. It's the toughest, most efficient, most effective border security bill this country has ever seen.
Wait
So
for it.
instead of playing politics with the issue, why don't we just get
He's
together?
gonna find another gear. Here we go.
Let's remember who the heck we work for.
Here it is.
We work for the American people, not the Democratic Party, the Republican Party. We work for the American people. And let's remember who we are. We're the United States of America. No, I mean this. Think about this. There's nothing beyond our capacity. Nothing when we work together. And if all things we should be working together on is this, we have the formula to get it done.
It's just, he's like half asleep half the time, and then we're America. We're America. We could do this. We just got to come together. Never mind, this was Mayorkas 3 years ago bragging about how he shut down everything Trump did.
And I'd like to understand from you what Trump-era immigration policies have been banned, ended, reversed, and if any investigations are underway by you.
So we have rescinded so many Trump immigration policies, it would take so much time to list them.
3 years ago, bragging about all the things that they rescinded that Trump did. Now Joe Biden, half asleep during most of the press conference, all of a sudden wakes up. This is America. And if we just come together, we can do it all. Going back to my original point, Bill, that most politicians play both role of arsonist and firefighter at the same time. And we all just sit here and squirm.
Oh, absolutely. And wonder why it's getting so hot.
Yeah. Let's go to Kathleen, line 1. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Kathleen.
Good morning. I know you're talking about crime that is committed by illegal aliens. I know we're all focused on Lakin in Georgia, but we also have two citizens of Colorado from Broomfield, Melissa Powell and her son Riordan, that were run down by a drunk driving illegal alien who had been deported 4 times from 2012 through now. So you've got a couple different administrations.
Yeah.
However, one person being killed is one too many. And if it was your own family member, you would feel totally differently. I used to be a nurse at LA County USC Medical Center. We had a patient on a research study who was illegal. He received a kidney transplant that at the time, the transplant itself was about $20,000. So I moved here. I've been here 30 years, worked as a nurse in a smaller town. And there was a lovely family. He was a World War II veteran. They lived here forever. They were on Medicare. They could barely afford health care. That's wrong.
I think there's a real truth to the fact that it is part of the equation is that it's really been difficult for people, the average citizen, the American, and yet it seems like we're providing all these additional services. The city of Denver, we got all these calls yesterday about this, $120 million being spent in the city of Denver on illegal immigrant services, everything from legal aid to housing to medical to education, and yet I came across this tweet yesterday. Most of the jobs that have been created in the past year are part-time jobs. There has been zero job growth for native-born Americans since 2018. Nearly all the jobs have gone to immigrants, mostly illegal immigrants. I think it's rightfully so for the people of America in the midst of the challenges they're facing, the struggles that they're facing, to go, man, it just doesn't seem fair. I think that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. Conservatives tend to value fairness, and a lot of the policies that are being implemented around illegal immigration just don't seem fair. Kathleen, thanks for the call. I appreciate it. I want to switch subjects here for just a little bit because I don't
like Kathleen. I do like what she said, and I think one of the problems being the fact that they again had been deported 4 times, and the fact that the person was behind the wheel. And the number one question I would have if I was in that law enforcement capacity and where is, how is this person funding their lifestyle? Is it through crime or is it through employment? And for me, that leads me down 2 different roads. If it's the crime thing, I want to deal with that and deal with that hard, including, maybe we incarcerate them for a while because if we deport them, they're probably coming back across. If they're funded by an employer that's here, I'm going to prosecute them for the crime, but I'm also going to go after the employer. And that would be the next step in the process. But yeah, and I've had some texters off the air that have asked me, how would I feel if my family was, the victim of an assault, a sexual assault, murder, and it would crush me. It would crush me. However, it wouldn't change my point based on the statistics. It wouldn't, just because I become part of the statistic, it wouldn't change the significance of the percentage, even though it happened to me, as difficult as that is. Would it mean more? Yes. Would it may change some of the advocacy that I go out there and do? Yes, it absolutely could. But it wouldn't change my core argument about even if my family is a victim, it doesn't necessarily make it a significant statistic inside the greater body, as difficult as that is for even me to accept, given that I may have lost a family member or even myself. But just got to be honest.
I appreciate that, Bill. I want to cover this article before we get to the weekend because this is an important article. You can read it at the Denver Gazette. CU study 2020 police pullback led to more crime. Social scientists followed 78 Denver neighborhoods and found that after police scaled back their presence directly following the killing of George Floyd at the hands of Minneapolis police officer and the COVID-19 pandemic, on average, property and violent crime reports increased 27.1%. Sorry, let me read that again. Property and violent crime reports increased 27.1% and 14.3%, respectively. Results of the research showed that the 2020 numbers varied according to neighborhoods. For instance, in 2020, violent crime increased in 55 neighborhoods, with Central Park seeing the largest increase. Violent crime actually decreased in 23 Denver neighborhoods. Property crime also increased exponentially during 2020, with Denver seeing a rise in 70 neighborhoods, with 5 points experiencing the largest spike. 8 neighborhoods saw property crime decrease, with Aurora experiencing less than others. Here's my question. During that whole debate, Bill, about George Floyd in 2020, 2021, a lot of conservatives were making the argument that pulling police back was actually going to harm black communities more. Do you think they were proved right?
Absolutely.
In this?
110%. And the BLM mantra and the liberal mantra of defund the police has to be one of the most rock-chewing, stupid ideas that I have ever heard in my adult life. I understand where they were coming from based on the emotion and based on what their goals were, but the idea that you need to defund the police and then we're going to take this money and put it into other areas was moronic. The idea that if we pull back some of the police, and this is the issue, is I understand that the vast majority of law enforcement are wonderful people. There are some bad apples inside.
Yep.
The issue that I think we have to address as the society is, I'll use the apple orchard example. If I handed you a bucket and said, here's the apple orchard in there, go and pick as many apples as you want and take them home to your family and feed your family. But I'm going to tell you, 95% of those apples are delicious. There are about 5% of those apples that when you eat them are going to make you really sick to your stomach. You're probably going to throw up a little bit, but then in 24 hours or so, you're going to be fine. But there's a percentage in there that you eat that apple, you're dead. It is going to kill you, and you're going to die a painful death in the next 5 minutes. How many apples do you pick? And they're going to say there's no way to tell them how many apples do you pick and then take home. You don't.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. When we make the argument that, well, inside of law enforcement, there are only a few apples. In this apple orchard, we'd burn it down and start over.
Yeah.
And that is the function. That's where they were going with it.
Yeah.
But the way they talked about it was stupid. And do we need to burn down the police forces? No. We just need to come to an agreement on, hey, maybe we find the people that are the bad apples inside, and we need the officers' help doing this. And an example that I have is there is an incident here that everybody would be familiar with. Got a lot of press. We had some court cases about it. The interesting thing was the officers that were brought up on charges internally were known as badasses, ass kickers, the tough guys, and that behavior was looked at as a positive. The behavior that got them into problems with the greater population was viewed as a positive. And I'm not saying that all the ass kickers, all the tough guys inside the law enforcement, but when that is viewed as a positive, you have a problem. And I also have a problem with sometimes how law enforcement views the society that they are interacting with.
Policing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I have a real problem sometimes with how the society views the law enforcement, that I don't think that they have a fair tact on those. My oldest son has a real serious issue with law enforcement. He does not like police. And it all stems from an encounter that he had when he was in first grade.
Really?
He was
First grade?
Yes. He was having... Again, we talked about he has some emotional and mental difficulties.
Okay. That's son.
And yes, and so he was having a problem in school, and the officer, the security officer that was there, dealt with him in a way that, looking back, you don't deal with a kid in this situation having this emotional crisis. Since then, he doesn't trust them. He doesn't. He respects them. He doesn't trust them, and that's from an encounter in first grade, and that's the problem that I have. But the idea of defund the police,
yeah.
stupid.
So I mean, the left.
Stupid.
So the left created this entire movement out of the kind of George Floyd incident that took place, that led to defund the police, that led to prosecuting police, and I mean, one, you've got this study, right, that it's led to more crime even in black communities, and so innocent black people are suffering more as a result of this movement. But I also want to cover what's happened to law enforcement generally, where Denver's having a challenge recruiting people now. A lot of the people that I talk to in law enforcement, older retired guys, are like, yeah, absolutely, I'd never go into this. What do you think is, I mean, this is generational. This is kind of like what the COVID lockdowns did with kids. We're going to deal with the effects of this for decades and decades and generations. And part of what drives me crazy is that our culture just kind of shrugs and moves on to the next crisis. Like, there's no real electoral consequence that's going to take place with this. The voters of Denver will just elect different Democrats. They're never going to put a Republican back into the mayor's office or make anybody pay over this. The same thing with, you know, what happened with the shutdowns in the COVID lockdowns.
Yeah.
No one ever paid an electoral price for that.
Yeah.
We just moved on. This was a really bad idea that, again, conservatives were on the right side of. And we just shrug. And now you have direct evidence of that. So
yeah, and again, the lockdown thing, I'm less on your side there, only because we were really bad at the lockdown thing. I mean, if you think about it, they were like, hey, everybody go, stay home, stay in your houses for a couple of days, and we all lined up at the grocery store next to each other, breathing on each other. So our functional lockdown, because there are some Asian Pacific countries that I could point to that did lockdowns outside of China that were incredibly effective, and their rate of COVID transmission was ridiculously low compared to ours. But they, again, approached it differently. They immediately, instead of going and staying in the grocery stores, there was food delivery. There was some other things.
Yeah,
So, and that's the thing is functionally.
That's not too For me, it's like the Chicago teachers unions that when it continued to keep kids out of the classroom, wanted to mask kids, wanted bizarre little partitions, all that stuff. And we're going to deal with that for generations. So this is where
I can get with you on that one. Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, I guess I find that conservatives tend to be on the right side of a lot of these issues, just viscerally, gut-wise. We shouldn't be doing this. We face a tremendous amount of pushback in culture, and then we end up being right. But you find out, you know, in this case, 5 years later with a study that the police pullback has led to more crime, even in black neighborhoods, and there's never any wrap up to it. It's just like, oh, okay. Billy, by the way, you need to copyright. This is a good text message. 7127. Billy, you need to copyright Rock Chewing Stupid.
Thank you so much. It's one of my favorite lines. I appreciate
We should
that.
get a store going here, and you can get an old T-shirt. Rock Chewing Stupid.
It's one of my favorites. It's that and the one that I stole from Colonel Dave Abel, one of my favorite teachers, that do you have the testicular fortitude? That was something he always used. And I love that phrase. It's so good, so descriptive, and so much fun.
Coming up here next, we're going to talk to Brian McGuire. Brian was a former chief of staff for Mitch McConnell. Regardless of how you feel about Mitch, this is going to provide some personal insight, which is going to be very unique and interesting. And we'll ask him who's likely to step up and take on the role of Mitch McConnell in the Senate. You're not going to want to miss it. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
This hour in London, I'm Julia Chapman, and here are the top stories we're following. The government will not go into a partial shutdown this weekend after a short-term funding bill was approved by the Senate last night. It funds some federal agencies until March 8th and others until March 22nd. Budget negotiations between Democrats and Republicans have been particularly challenging in recent weeks. President Joe Biden said the bill's approval is good news for the American people, but he urged lawmakers to pass a long-term funding bill, including a national security package for Ukraine and Israel. The Biden administration will investigate potential national security risks posed by Chinese-made smart cars that can gather sensitive information about Americans driving them. In New York, Haley Bianco explains.
The probe could lead to new regulations aimed at preventing China from using sophisticated technology in electric cars and other so-called connected vehicles to track drivers and their personal information. While the action stops short of a ban on Chinese imports, President Biden said he is taking unprecedented steps to safeguard Americans' data. He said Chinese cars could flood the U.S. market, posing risks to national security. Reporting in New York, I'm Haley Bianco, Salem News Channel.
And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm Julia Chapman in London on Salem News Channel.
Beautiful day today, 65 sunny and warm. It's going to get a little windy tomorrow, but even warmer, 67, and then some showers developing on Sunday and Monday. So get those projects around the house done today and tomorrow. Hey, we're really blessed to have on the line with us Brian McGuire. Brian served as a chief speechwriter and deputy communications director for the U.S. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell, went on to serve as his chief of staff. And, you always, what I've learned working in politics is you always see the media portray somebody one way, but then when you go talk to the people that actually worked with that elected official, you sometimes get just totally different stories. And I wanted to just dive in with Brian into kind of who Mitch McConnell really is. Let's press past the media and give us a sense of who this person was. You served him as his top aide, his chief of staff. Brian, thanks so much for being on the program with us.
Great to be with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Well, so give us a little insight into what it was like working for Mitch McConnell and a little bit of a sense of his personality.
Yeah, I appreciate the way you introed that. I agree with you. It's really enlightening to talk to people who actually know the people who are being written about and talked about in the news. You learn a whole lot. I didn't have a very clear impression of Senator McConnell when I first met him in 2006, but I got to work very closely with him for the following decade, and I can't imagine a better boss. He was just on a kind of personal level, just really a warm, really impressive person to deal with on that staff level. Everybody who's ever worked for him would say that without any dissent. I'm confident of that, and he's had a lot of staff over the last 40 years, so that's a big pool of people. But he is extremely kind of fun to work with because he's always got a mission, and everybody feels like they're part of the team and part of that mission. And to work for somebody who's that focused and that committed to what he's doing every day really raises the kind of, I would say, professional temperature in the office. Everybody felt like they were part of something important. Working for him, he took his job very seriously. He took his role in the Senate very seriously, understood his sort of responsibilities in a very serious way, and a very principled guy. He has a kind of a unique job that he's had for the last 18 years, and I think that's helped inform sort of the public perception, because by nature of that job, you're trying to corral, in his case right now, 49 Republicans in the same direction on any given issue on any given day, and that's not an easy job to do. And so you necessarily have to work with the party that's in power in the White House. And so you have to, agree to things that might not be perfect. And it exposes you to a lot of, I would say, unmerited criticism, but it's criticism that he never minded because he understood what his role was, and he was very good at kind of tuning out the critics.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that, because his job is to be the top Republican in the Senate. I think there was a strong desire, well, just go yell at the Democrats or shut down the operations of the Senate. Stop what the Nancy Pelosi's doing or what Joe Biden's doing. What is you get into that sense of kind of corralling and guiding all these senators. Does the Senate serve a little bit of a different role than just kind of I guess just yelling at the other side?
Yeah, I mean, if you take the job seriously, it does. If your purpose in being elected a senator is to express your feelings and to tell people how mad you are about something that they're doing, then you might gain some popularity in some quarters, but you're not going to be, I would say, an effective or a particularly useful member of that body. The purpose of that body is to legislate, or in the case of the Senate, to legislate, to review, to confirm executive branch nominees, to dispose of treaties. There's a very specific job description, and it does not include using the Senate as a kind of studio to ventilate your own personal opinions. That's definitely
That's
part
what
of
we
it.
have talk radio for. So that's what I get to do every morning.
Exactly. I mean, it's certainly, it's been called, I think appropriately, the world's greatest deliberative body. So that function is an important part of being a senator, but it's only a part of it. It's the part that precedes actual legislating. And legislating is, it's trite to say, but it's messy. It's messy. It involves working with people you don't necessarily agree with on policy grounds in order to advance legislative priorities. And, in most cases, because of the nature of the legislative function, because of the nature of the Senate itself, given its supermajority threshold for advancing serious legislation, you're going to have to work with the other side. And so that's just, additionally complicating for people who want to remain pure ideologically. So it's just, I think, a different set of expectations for somebody who's going in who does not view that process, in the same way.
We're talking with Brian McGuire. He served as the chief of staff to United States Senator Mitch McConnell. Previously, you're not doing that now, but give people a sense of what the job of a chief of staff is for a U.S. senator. Are you getting text messages from Mitch McConnell at 2 a.m. that you're having to respond to? Are you getting his dry cleaning? What is the job of a chief of staff?
Well, so just to be clear, so Senator McConnell has two offices, as the leaders of the two parties do in the Capitol. One is in the Capitol office. That's what they call the leadership office. And then the other is the personal office, the office that serves specifically and primarily the constituents that elect them to the Senate. So that was true for McConnell. It's true for him now. It's true for Schumer. And I was the chief of staff in the personal office, so the state-focused office, though I had worked in the leadership office for 8 years prior to that. So I had experience of working, in senior roles in both those offices. But specifically, the chief of staff's job is, it's a job that, requires you to do just about everything you're asked to do. And you have to obviously develop some skills of prioritization. But, one of the things I really loved about working for Senator McConnell is, he would get in the car in the morning and say, this is what I care about today. And he would tell you the thing that he cared about that day. And that would enable you to prioritize your own list of things or reprioritize them, because you knew exactly what was the highest priority for him. And I'll tell you, that's a great, I would say, feature of his leadership style, is that he never struggled to figure out what his priorities were. They were always very clear. He had already thought them through. And so he wasn't really given to distraction at all. And that's really kind of a fun environment in which to work, where you're never worried that the principal doesn't sort of know, what thing to focus on from day to day. That was always very, very clearly defined, very clearly understood.
So did you ever get a call from him that was like, I'd like to prioritize making Joe Biden's life harder today. Please, Brian, go do that, and I'll see you in the office in a little bit. Or
no,
what would be a priority of his?
Well, that would not, enable him to legislate or to lead his conference if all it was a kind of, a personal attack. Or
yeah.
He did not focus on anything that did not support or reinforce whatever his goals were.
Huh.
And that again was a really kind of a great environment in which to work. But sometimes you are surprised by the prioritization, not because you disagree, but you just didn't see it coming. But he had a really good, strong, clear intuition about what was the right thing to be focused on at the moment. And a lot of people talk about the role that he played, the decisive role he played in reshaping the federal judiciary. And I think that's a very good example. He immediately saw the opportunity there when Trump was elected in 2016, And, it wasn't just something that he was ideologically aligned with, the goal, but it was something where he knew that that was an opportunity to do something that had real impact. Majorities come and go, as the Republican majority has since then in the Senate. And so legislation, you hope that it's stable, but it's not necessarily stable given how big the majorities are. And so, he saw that they had an opportunity with a Republican president, with a Republican Senate, which confirms judicial appointments, including slots on the, Article 3 courts, had an opportunity to really reshape the judiciary and put all of his energy and focus into that. And, staff jumped right to it, and they understood that that was the goal, and they executed on it under his leadership. So I think that's a very good example.
Jeff and Bill Show talking to Brian McGuire, former chief of staff for Mitch McConnell. Now, Brian, I want to ask you, what is the most underrated trait that you feel is overlooked that Mitch McConnell possessed that made him so effective?
Well, when somebody's in a leadership position, I think their first instinct is to dominate the room, to show their authority in different ways, to make their authority felt. And McConnell has had this job, his current job, for going on 18 years, which is really, if you think about it, given how much political turmoil there's been in this country over the last 18 years, an extraordinary feat. And so the question is, well, how does somebody do that? How do you maintain that level of trust in that many people for that long during so many sort of convulsive periods? And, there's a number of answers to that question, but one of the traits I think that he really possesses and exercises expertly is this instinct, rather than to dominate a room, given his job and the authority he has, is his first instinct is to listen and to let other people talk, and to sort of sit back and assess where, in his case, his membership is and what's possible given that, give people an opportunity to express their views clearly, emphatically, repeatedly, and to make recommendations and to persuade based on all the input he's getting, rather than to simply come to a situation with a preformed conclusion or set of directions. He's very good, and I think it's an underrated trait broadly, but in jobs like that especially, to have that kind of discipline to allow other people to dominate a conversation or a room or an environment, even though you're within your rights to do it yourself. So that's what I would point to.
That is an amazing insight. Thank you so much, Brian McGuire, former chief of staff with Mitch McConnell, because it is so much easier to lead any group if you understand the direction they want to go first, rather than you
Correct.
charting the direction and then trying to convince them to follow you. That is that is an incredible insight. Thank you so much for that. Now, you've given all this insight on Mitch McConnell. Now, I'm going to ask you to put on your magic sorting hat like they do in Harry Potter. If you had to pick the top 3 successors in the Senate, who do you think they are and why?
Well, I'm not going to name any names here that haven't been put out there a bunch over the last couple of days. It's no secret that the 3 senators who have expressed some interest in that job, Senators Barrasso, Cornyn, and Thune. Senator Cornyn has stated that he's actually going to seek that job, and the other 2, I think, have still allowed themselves the opportunity not to. But I think it's fairly well understood that they're all 3 of them are interested and could be successors to the senator. And what I would say about that is, and then there could be somebody else who emerges, obviously. It's a very inside game. It's not easy to predict the outcome of that race for a number of reasons, one of which is that the relationships are very personal, and those relationships are established and built and nurtured over years. it's impossible for people on the outside to fully understand or appreciate the relationship that those members have with the people who will be voting for them. Also, there's a secret ballot, as you know, in Senate leadership elections, so no one's at risk of any political fallout for, voting for someone that they think could lead the conference effectively, unlike the House, where it's a very public process. The votes are public and everybody can see who you're voting for. So the Senate process is much more hand-to-hand, personal, reflects relationships that the rest of us just simply don't have full visibility into. And so I think, it's likely that we won't know who the next leader is until the day it's announced. There are a lot of externalities and factors that could contribute to that other than the personal relationships. Obviously, the outcome of the presidential election may have some, influence over who that person is. But I think, the one-on-one conversations between whoever ends up running or putting their hat in the ring and those members is decisive.
We've been talking with Brian McGuire, who served as Chief of Staff to United States Senator Mitch McConnell, giving us some insight into the man himself and what it was like to work with him. Brian, I really appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah, it was good to be with you guys. Appreciate it.
All right. That's Brian McGuire, again, Chief of Staff, United States Senator Mitch McConnell. I think it's important, and I'm going to go, and I see some of the text messages coming in. I know what the media says about Mitch McConnell. I'm not ignoring that. And I know your concerns about Mitch's leadership, and they're totally valid concerns. I want to talk to people that work directly with him. I just want a different insight, just a little bit of a different angle as to who these people are, so I can understand them. Because I remember working for Rick Santorum when they made an entire derogatory website dedicated to Santorum, named a despicable act after Rick Santorum. And all this stuff, and I'm sitting there, here's a guy I know. I've driven him to back to his house so he can hang out with his wife and kids, and I know his family. I just see a different side. Very few people get a chance to see that. You should listen to them.
Yeah, that was that was a unique fight with he and Dan Savage. That was
I
remember that one. I remember that one. Yeah, I really appreciate it, Brian, and I think the idea of looking behind the scenes.
Yeah.
That this is someone that sat in the room with him and wanted to know what were those qualities. That's the part that I think was most valuable in the conversation, because if we don't know what qualities made McConnell effective, how then do you choose a proper successor?
100%.
And that's what we really need.
Great,
because
great, Bill.
I don't always agree with Mitch McConnell, but I will give him all the props in the world for strategically being able to herd the cats. He kept the Republicans in line in the Senate, and he is responsible, whether or not you agree or disagree, with so many judge appointments for Trump and 3 Supreme Court justices that you can argue, and I think fairly, you can argue that he stole one of those. I think you can fairly argue it. However, it happened. It's sour grapes going back and saying, if the person gets away with pulling your shirt and you don't get called for holding in football, you got away with it. No point whining about that after the Super Bowl. It doesn't matter. Game's over. So I do believe that one of those two, absolutely stolen, but he made it happen. How insane is that? Yep. I have to give him all the credit and all the respect in the world, because dude pulled it off. Even though I disagree with it, he pulled it off. So, sir, I salute you for that one. I can't throw rocks at what you were able to accomplish. And we got to figure out, if you want that to happen again, that sort of discipline, you got to find the same type of characteristics.
I appreciate Brian joining us. All right, we'll get to your calls and texts. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
It's been an absolutely fantastic week. I want to thank everybody for the phone calls and the text messages. Reminder, let us know where you're from, your name and where you're from. You don't have to give us your last name. That just helps us know where people are listening and, maybe where in the state you're commenting from.
And we'd like to use your name. We'd like to make sure that know we're talking to you.
So let us know on that. This show is growing. I mean, exponentially.
Like
Tell
mold.
your friends about it.
Like
Our
that
goal,
fungus.
hottest morning show in Denver. Let
be
us
quiet.
know. You've been listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.